What's up, and welcome to another episode of Gizmo Slip Tech. Today we're taking a close look and detailed review unboxing of the XMG Neo 16, arguably the fastest laptop that money can buy currently, and that's out of any form factor size, despite this being a 16-inch chassis. Now, the key thing to keep in mind, the only way to actually make this thing go faster than the bigger 18-inch air-cooled laptops is by using the water cooler on the XMG Neo 16. So that's kind of like the fundamental basics of this machine. It's going to be more portable than a lot of the other super powerful 18-inch laptops, while at the same time providing close to the high-end performance while on air. But when plugged into the water cooler, it should exceed, in theory, performance on the 18-inch chassis by maybe a little bit, or being equal to the very best 18-inch chassis at the very least. Today we've got a ton of stuff we're going to go over. We've got unboxing the laptop, weight, hinge, flex tests, removing the bottom, internal analysis, reviewing the ports, entering the BIOS, bloatware evaluation, webcam quality, Windows Hello, keyboard and mouse testing, display tests, evaluate the laptop control software, speaker test, fan noise, 8064 RAM speed, CrystalDiskMark, Cinebench R23. I think we're also going to do R24, Time Spy, and then we've got 10 games for testing today. I'm super excited. It's been a little while since I've done a live stream, so I'm happy to get another one in. And I've been meaning to do this one, but just been a little busy lately. And so, yeah. What's up, everyone? I see people hopping in the chat. Let me know if everything sounds good, and we're just going to go ahead and proceed. So let's talk about the biggest pros and cons for the XMG Neo 16 and also go over the config options on this machine. Okay, so the XMG Neo 16, it has a all-metal chassis, or almost all-metal chassis. I think there is some like plastic bezel around the inside here. But it's very much improved build quality compared to last year's Neo 16 and Neo 17. It's also much more compacted down. They've shaved off at least 3/4 of an inch, I believe, on the outside dimensions of the laptop, at the same time improving the performance on the inside. Now, you can configure this with an RTX 4060 up to a 4090, but I would say this thing's only really worth buying if you're going to go for a 4080 or 4090 config, because otherwise I would say it's better just to go with an air-cooled machine, because you don't really need like a water cooling capability on a 4070, 4060, or 4050. And if you do want an XMG machine, you could go for something like the Fusion 15, which is XMG's non-water cooling but very similar chassis, and it's a little bit thinner, a little bit don't have all that water cooling input and output, or the extra space that the water cooling takes up on the inside of the chassis, for example. So this is the configurator for the Neo 16, and let's go over the cheapest config to the most expensive config. So this thing can get really expensive, but it starts out at 1850 euros. Keep in mind that this is a chassis made by Uniwell or Tongfang, and basically that means that this can be resold as a number of different names. For example, in the United States, it's sold as the Hydroc 16, and that is sold through electronics. So, and there's different configs depending on which region you're in. I know in Australia, it's also a different retailer. And so in Europe, if you want an XMG, or specifically in Germany, you want an XMG Neo 16, this config, you got to go through XMG to get it. So just know that there are options for the United States, and it's essentially the same laptop, but maybe some slight BIOS tweaks, and the support you get will be different from company to company. All right, so for the display, there's only one display option, 16-inch, 2560 by 1600 resolution. Let me go and zoom in so we can see this a little better. And it's supposed to be more than 95% sRGB. So not a super high color gamut display, but it should be a high color gamut display, high enough for most gamers at least, and some content creators that are more casual. You can go with a 4060, 4070, 4080, or 4090. No 4050 options, and it costs a whopping 1,600 more euros if you want to go for that 4090 option. So wow, that is pretty crazy price increase. And that said, 4060 versus the 4090. The 4090 is going to be literally double the speed, so you're paying less than double the price for double the speed. It's going to be worth it for a lot of people to go for that 4090 version, but the 4080 version is probably a better bang for the buck in terms of value for your money. At 622 euro difference, that's pretty pricey upgrade. You can also customize the RAM and the brand that you go with. And I probably would recommend the Kingston Fury RAM upgrade if you want to go for one, just because that would also let you do custom RAM timings, which this laptop does allow. I mean, you can do custom RAM timings, I think, with almost any of these, but the Kingston Fury has, I believe, the tightest timings out of these RAM options that we have available here. You can also do a custom SSD upgrade, and you can also do a second SSD upgrade if you want. You can also do your own custom Wi-Fi. The default Wi-Fi, I think, is going to be just fine. I had some great Wi-Fi speeds on my laptop. You also can get Windows 11 Home or Pro. It's interesting that they don't include it. It's only 39 euros to add it, but I would definitely recommend adding it just from the factory. And then there's a standard 24 months warranty with a quick repair within the first 6 months, which is interesting that they have different repair times for 6 months versus 24. That said, most of the problems you encounter with your laptop will happen in the first 6 months. So overall, in terms of value, you get the i9-14900HX no matter what laptop or GPU, no matter what GPU you configure it with or RAM you configure it with. But I would say if you're going to go for this laptop, generally I'd say only buy it with the 4080 or 4090. If you want something less powerful, probably better to go with a cheaper overall system. All right, so let's talk biggest pros and cons. And this is the box for the Neo 16 right here. And this is the water cooler right here. All right. So the biggest con about this setup, I think, is that if you want to truly get next level performance beyond what a lot of other 4090 laptops offer, you're going to have to use a water cooler. But with the water cooler, you get the pros of less overall fan noise while having more performance. So if you value lowering your overall noise profile for your machine and your home environment, the water cooler can be really, really nice because you get that full power, and it's a nice medium low amount of noise. You do still hear the water pump moving water around, but it is a lot quieter than most laptops with medium to high fans. So I do really like this overall. We'll be doing a fan noise testing today on this guy. Other big pros and cons for this laptop is that, you don't really have, like, probably the biggest con for me, considering this laptop, is the lower color gamut display. I really prefer 100% Adobe or 100% P3 color gamut displays because I'm a content creator and I love poppy, colorful displays. And this just doesn't have as colorful of a display. So that to me is probably the biggest deal breaker from my perspective looking at the machine currently. Otherwise, it has good ports, excellent performance. In my preliminary testing, we'll be doing more detailed testing today, obviously. And yeah, I mean, it's very portable for the amount of performance you're getting. One of the most portable versus highest possible performance, like basically the highest possible performance in the slimmest possible package, probably currently available or close to the highest possible performance, like per square inch or whatever on the chassis size, because they do a really great job making it a very efficient cooling system, allowing full performance and then boosted beyond performance when you hook it up to that water cooler. So those are the biggest pros and cons. Let me just hop over to chat and make sure I'm not missing anything. What's up, hard hitter? Glad to be here. Welcome, welcome. I wish 18-inch was the norm for gaming laptops. The size of the scale 18 is perfect for me. Yeah, well, if you're gonna use this laptop, right, you're probably gonna be using it with the water cooler when you're at home. And in my opinion, if you're gonna be hooking up a water cooler, you might as well just plug in an external monitor and mouse when you're at home, and then you have an even bigger screen than 18 inches. But yeah, at that point, why not just build a desktop? That's a great point, Travis. Well, some people just want to have the ability to, unplug and go and take their laptop to their office and then have a one unified system where they can have that high level of performance no matter where they are. And if you have like a desktop and a laptop. You know, you can't have that portability and the performance at the same time in one machine. So that's kind of the main argument for this. But I totally agree with you in the sense that if you're after the ultimate performance, a desktop will provide more performance. But this still provides tons of performance. A lot of gaming laptops do provide tons of performance, more than what the vast majority of users need anyway. So it's kind of one of those kind of arguments where you're like, well, you want portability, then you got to go with a laptop. If you want maximum performance and you don't really need portability, then you might as well go with the desktop. So that's kind of my take on that. A lot of people do own both though. So I would invite you to like the live stream and also subscribe if you want more tech videos. We'll be doing more live streams in the coming days. I will be transitioning studios here eventually, but I'll be in this studio for about another week or so. I'm trying to do several live streams here in this next week. So I'm looking forward to doing those with y'all shortly. So let's go ahead and unbox the laptop and check out the power adapter next. All right. So, which is better, the Lenovo Legion or this product? It depends on what you're looking for. The Legion 7i or Legion 7 is probably going to give you a little better bang for the buck on a per dollar basis. But this one, I'm pretty sure will give you more performance. So from a pure performance basis, this one's probably the way to go with. But I do like the Legion lineup as well, especially depending on which one you're talking about, the 9i versus the 7i. There's a lot of them, right? So Daddy Strix, hi Gizmo, would you recommend the Acer Predator Helios 18 or the Raider GE78HX for best performance? Also notice the 4080 version for Predator is 330 watts total power. So for best performance, probably the Raider is going to give you the better performance, but I haven't done detailed testing on both of those yet. It's going to depend on the config and price, and it's hard for me to say which one I'd recommend Daddy without knowing all of the details there. But let's go ahead and get into the unboxing here. Try to answer some more questions a little later in the live stream. Here we go. So here is the box. You can see it's got a nice brandless exterior to it. And this was shipped in another box. So this is just the internal box. So there, and it was probably one of the most protected laptops that I've ever seen. Like straight up, like it was an incredibly protected box where I don't think anything's going to be damaged. And the water cooler also had its own separate packaging. So here is the laptop right here. We'll just set this up here and take a look at the rest of the inside before we continue on. All right, so here is, this is pretty interesting, all right? This is included in the laptop, and it's these stickers. I've never seen a laptop manufacturer do this before. You get the stickers like the Intel Core i9HX sticker and the NVIDIA GPU sticker, but they don't force you to put it on. So you can choose whether you want to put it on the machine or not, which is so cool. I love that because a lot of people hate having these stickers on there. And that's just like an extra touch from XMG that is next level. All right, so this is the new 330 watt power brick. Also, this is drivers, I believe. I don't know if there's a Windows, there might be a Windows backup install on here. It might depend on how you configure it when you order it, but you believe you can get a Windows backup install on here. So if you wanted to do a clean install of Windows, you could do that. That said, there was no bloatware on this machine at all, pretty much, when I loaded it up, which is a breath of fresh air compared to almost all the other manufacturers out there. All right, so here is the laptop itself. So it comes with a plastic coating over the display. We also have this nice felt keyboard thing. There was also a plastic covering over the metal here, but I did not want to just leave it on there because I needed to, I don't know. I wanted to take it off for the thumbnail shots, basically. So I had to take that off beforehand. But that's the laptop right there. This feels absolutely amazing in the hands, like so much better than the more plasticky version of the last year's model. I mean, the last year's model had a lot of metal on it, but this one just feels as tightly built as like a razor. You know, like you hold it in your hand, it feels like a weapon. It feels super solid, and I really like the build quality on this year's model compared to last year's Neo 17 that I reviewed. And this one's definitely a big step in the right direction for XMG, or I guess Uniwil, Tongfang, you know. So we do have the XMG logo right here, imprinted on the back. And let me go ahead and pull this up. I'm just making sure I can see chat while we're streaming here. All right. Okay, so power cable right here. Nice and thick cable. It's also got some good length to it. About 5.5 feet long or so for the power cable. And the power adapter is a bit shorter. Let's go ahead and see how long this is. So this is about 4 feet long for the power adapter cable. So overall, you're getting about, I don't know, a 9-10 foot reach or so with the overall plug-in capabilities, which is pretty good. Now, when you plug this in, something that's very different than most laptops is that you're actually going to plug, so you can plug this in if you're going to operate this on air. You can plug this in directly into the back of the laptop right here. But if you're going to use the water cooler, you actually plug this in to the back of the water cooler. All right, so you actually plug it in right here. And then you take the plug in from the water cooler, and this goes to the laptop itself, okay? So very different setup overall. A couple of drops just came out of the connector when I moved it around. That's gonna happen with the water cooler. It's normal behavior. You just gotta wipe it with a little paper towel, or just, honestly, it'll just evaporate in a second if you just spread it around. That's what I usually do. Okay, so before we get this plugged in, we're gonna do a tear down, take this thing apart and check out the upgradability. Also, let's go ahead and weigh it. All right, so weigh-in time. The XMG looks like a Legion keyboard. It's pretty similar. I mean, it's not like the Legion keyboard's a pretty standard keyboard look, I think. All right, so here's the laptop. Looking at 5.51 pounds, basically. So 5 pounds, 8 ounces. And let's go ahead and add the power brick and see how heavy that is to add that on top. Then we jump up to 7 pounds, 13 ounces. So about 7.75, a little more than that. So 7.8 pounds or so for the total laptop carry weight with the power adapter. And this is a 330 watt power brick. So this is a slimmer GAN power brick compared to last year's beefier one. So that's a nice improvement as well. Pandora Jinx says, I loved your review of the Legion Pro 7i with the 4090, and good lord, this thing is a monster. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's a great laptop, too. All right, so next up, I guess I'm doing things backwards. chassis flex test. All right, so first the hinge is very solid. You see how sturdy that hinge looks when I move it back and forth? I can crank on this hinge and it stops where I put it, and it pretty much stays there. Also, this hinge can go all the way back. You can lay flat, which is great to see. I mean, it's just nice that you're not going to accidentally extend it too far. Not that you'd actually use it in full extension mode very often or anything, but it's just a nice feature to have. Let's go ahead and do a flex test. All right, so again, extremely not bendy at all. Like in the top and the bottom right, no flex, a little bit of flex getting over here to the number. Always the middle of the keyboard has a little bit of flex, right? But still, this is not much. I'm pushing down real hard. No flex along the whole front. No flex, no flex, no flex, no flex, no flex. I accidentally turned it on. Keyboard area has just a little bit of flex. They could probably improve the keyboard area just a little bit on the flex, but it's very minor still. I would say this is still excellent in overall keyboard flexibility. Like, it's very stiff. I'm trying to just turn the machine off again. Good. Okay. I think I turned it off again. Good. All right. And in terms of layout, this is very similar to the Legion, which is, I think, a good thing. Like, it's a very nice keyboard layout because you got the number pad on the right side that's very standardized, feels very good to type with. The arrow keys are spread apart and separated just a little bit, making them easy to find by just pure touch. And then the keyboard itself has a good typing feel. This is the European keyboard with the short space, the short shift key on the left here. It makes it kind of hard for me to type because I always end up pressing the slash button instead. We're going to go over the keyboard and all the backlighting options here in a moment. But the touchpad is also very nice. Glass touchpad with a nice click and good overall layout. So overall, love the hinge. Love the build quality on this. Super sturdy feeling. Just like I said, it feels like a weapon in your hands, which is what you want, I think, when you're buying an expensive laptop. So all metal top, bottom. The only plastics that I really see here are like the, I guess the rubber wrist rest, and then we have a plastic. This interior frame here is plastic going around the display. So that's one of the only things that's plastic on this machine. All right. Let's open it up. What are we looking for? We're looking for a small Phillips head screwdriver. All right, so there's one. Four screws along the front. All of these are very easy to remove. You would want a magnetically enabled screwdriver to pull those ones out, though. So if you need a magnetic screwdriver, that's a good one. I should have a link in the description to this laptop iFixit kit. It's got the basics for taking laptops apart and is a really good screwdriver kit if you need one. And I think it's only like 20 bucks or something like that, so it's a pretty good deal. All right, so that is all of the screws out right there. Now let's see how hard it is to take the laptop physically apart. So we're going to use a spuger tool. We could use this one maybe, or maybe one of these guitar pick style ones. All right, let's go ahead and just switch the angle of the display over here. And looks like it separates halfway up the chassis. Too bad there is no pop-up screw. That would be a cool addition if they wanted to add that to this for next year's version. Because there's not very many gaps in this chassis to actually get in here. There we go, found a gap. Okay, it's coming up pretty easily now. Not hard at all so far. I just had to find that initial gap, and now it's popping apart just super easily. Bingo. All right, let's go ahead and set it back down on the table and evaluate the inside of the laptop. So overall, I would say it's a very easy machine to take apart. Okay, so wow, this is cool. I didn't even realize they sent the laptop with Kingston Fury Impact RAM. How awesome is that? They got the highest end RAM on this config, which is really cool. 99 watt hour battery here is the highest you can take on an airplane, so that's excellent. Though I would not expect exceptional battery life here. We got the i9, very high amount of CPU cores, E-cores and active cores, 24 core, 32 thread on this. So I mean, battery life, you're looking at 3 to 5 hours of typical web browsing, depending on how well you optimize it. For gaming, maybe an hour and a half. That's going to be very typical on almost all i9 4090 laptops. But the fact that it's a 99 watt hour, it does give you the maximum potential for the hardware that's on the inside, which is really good. Okay, so we have this heat plating right here over our M.2 slots. So our SSD slots are right here. There are 2 of them, so you can upgrade them, and you can easily upgrade them here because of this heat shielding. Just pop that off and you can upgrade that. We also have the Wi-Fi card right here with this metal plating over the top. Notice we have our shared heat pipe system for 3 of the heat pipes, but we also have a dedicated heat pipe for both the CPU and the GPU. Keep in mind, we also have another heat pipe over here for the VRMs, which is great. So you just make sure that the VRMs can go to their maximum potential speed and performance level. And overall, this heat pipe layout is excellent. So the reason why it's excellent is because you really want to be able to leverage both fans and all 4 fan exhausts, whether you're in a CPU or a GPU only workload. So these 3 shared heat pipes are going to really allow both fans to fully take the heat and expel it from the system and allow the system to perform really well, whether it's on air-cooled or water-cooled environment. Now, let's talk about the water cooling loop. The water cooling loop comes in right here. I'm going to just kind of zoom in a little bit for this. Bring it closer. All right, so the water cooling loop, it comes in right here. And then let me try to focus a little further. It comes in at this point, goes around the heat pipe. It goes around this big metal plate, basically. There's this unified metal plate, goes down, goes around down to here, goes over the CPU, and then comes back out and exits the laptop. So there's a chart or a little diagram here I can show you from XMG, and so here is what it does. You come in one side, the heat plate basically goes over the GPU and the CPU, and the water just flows all around there, taking the heat out of the system and expelling it with the water cooler right here, which is going to be like a huge extra fan to help aid your laptop's cooling. So that's basically how the cooling system works. And I think it's probably From my preliminary testing, it is probably the best cooling solution so far for a gaming laptop that we've seen, in particular for CPU-centered performance. So meaning games that can take advantage of more CPU power and GPU power at the same time are going to perform better. Games that don't really need extra CPU power are going to perform the same as other air-cooled gaming laptops. So your gaming performance is going to really depend on what game you're playing in terms of, is this actually going to be faster or not? In terms of just raw CPU performance in day-to-day applications like Adobe, Microsoft, all of that, this is going to be excellent because the CPU is going to be able to run at a higher speed without slowing down and without being thermal throttled, even when it's under maximum load. Or, I mean, it will be thermal throttled, but when it reaches that thermal throttle, it'll be at a much higher power limit, which means higher clock speeds, more responsiveness, and more overall performance compared to a straight air-cooled system that might run into the thermal bottlenecks much faster. Okay, so that's the internal Kingston Fury Impact RAM, 2 SSD upgrades, Wi-Fi upgradability, 99 watt-hours battery, and our speaker system here are forward-facing. So that's interesting. So you want to make sure the front of your laptop is not being blocked if you want to have better audio quality. All right, let's go ahead and put this thing back on. Also notice all of the air ventilation right here. And know that there's also air ventilation intakes over and through the keyboard. Like many laptops these days, there's air intakes over the keyboard. So, but that's another place for this one I know that has air coming in to help improve airflow. Notice there is this RGB bar here. We'll turn that on and show that to you today as well. So just ensuring that we're fully popped together. All right, let's go ahead and start screwing it back down. And let me pull up chat while we're doing this. Brandon, are you excited to test the Ryzen AI 9 laptops? I am. I was setting one up last night. I've got the Zephyrus G16 with the Ryzen 9 AI. It's gonna be, I think, really cool. I think the main thing is, honestly, the new, I think it's WFMF. It's like new frame gen basically for AMD GPUs. I don't know. I don't think it's applicable to NVIDIA GPUs or Intel. I think it's just AMD. It's done at a driver level, and it should work in the vast majority of games. And that should, in theory, help a lot for integrated graphics performance, making the gameplay much smoother, even when you're just buying a integrated graphics card. So, and I'm hoping that will also make AMD, like Radeon GPUs, that much better as well. So make it much more competitive with NVIDIA, especially if they can get it to where almost every game is supported at a driver level. You're not relying on the developers to integrate FrameGen at that point. You're just going to get massive performance boost whenever you turn that on. And it'll increase your latency too. Those will be fake generated frames, but it'll make it so much smoother. So yeah, am I excited about the Ryzen AI? Yes. And my plan right now is to do a comparison video comparing the Intel Core Ultra 9 versus the Ryzen 9 AI. And I'm not sure if I'll do that tomorrow or the next day, but expect that very soon. That is my next live stream after this one. So, and we'll do a few games and a bunch of CPU tests for that video. Eric says, why does the Acer Predator have 157 watts in the CPU, but Raider only has 75 watts in turbo mode? Is there a reason? Daddy, that's just going to depend on what you're doing with it. Both of those laptops should be able to go to more than 75 watts in a CPU-only workload. All right, let me go ahead and get the laptop plugged in. I'll be right back. So again, we're plugging the power adapter into the water cooler. The water cooler then has a secondary cable that goes to the laptop. All right, so we should be plugged in now. We are, and the water cooler is coming on. Let's go into the BIOS, if we can. I'm not sure if it's F2 or delete yet. Okay, we're in the BIOS. All right. Just getting everything plugged in the back there. Just plug the water cooler in. Very simple and quick, easy to plug in the water cooler now. Systems Reality team, I missed your stream so much. Glad you could make it back. All right, let's go to white balance. All right. Happy to have you here. All right, let's check out this BIOS setup. So XMG is known for having excellent BIOSes, in my opinion. They traditionally have a lot of advanced options that most other companies do not include. So let's take a look, all right? So we can control the BIOS with our mouse if we want. It does seem to work pretty well. We can see our specs here, 32 gigs of memory, i9-14900HX. And then this is just a basic information. Let's go to the advanced area. All right, so I'm just gonna use arrow keys. It's a little easier to control, I think. So you can do FN lock for F1 through 12, which will alternate the primary functions of your F1 through 12 keys if you wanted to do display brightness instead of F1 and F2, for example. Passive cooling, when enabled, fans will stop at very low temperatures. When disabled, fans will keep running at low speed, even in idle. So this is basically, if you're trying to go for a completely silent laptop and you're okay with temperatures going up a little bit to prevent the fans from activating and deactivating. Active performance cores, active efficiency cores. You might be able to play around with this if you want to go for extreme battery level performance or something. I don't know, just turning off your performance cores or turning off your efficiency cores. Enable and disable some standard Intel stuff there. We got a Samsung 990 Pro is the SSD that we have in the laptop. We can disable and enable network settings. Wake on LAN. Interesting. Enable or disable integrated LAN to wake the system. Interesting. Performance tuning. So if we want to undervolt the system, we can undervolt it right here in the BIOS. All right. So there is load line undervolting, which is a way to basically adjust the power input on the system to do a similar thing to undervolting without having to mess with specific values as much. All right, so you can enable and disable load line undervolting. You can also do traditional undervolting. So you can do all core voltage offset, offset preset, offset prefix, and then your E2, your ring, your uncore. So you've got the core, you got the most important things you can undervolt right here in the BIOS. Now, the thing is, if you undervolt in the BIOS and you over undervolt to where your system is crashing on boot up, you're gonna want to do a BIOS reset, which I believe there's hotkeys. I can't remember what the hotkey is off the top of my head, but there is a way to reset the BIOS on the boot up by pressing and holding something. I have to double check what it is, but maybe someone in chat can remember. But it's definitely something you want to know if you're going to be doing this BIOS undervolting. You can also just unlock the undervolting and just do your undervolts straight inside of Windows with throttle stop or Intel XTU. So you have basically all the undervolting options that you would love and you would come to expect with XMG laptops, which is great. Now, profiles and recovery. So this profile performance button is right here next to the power button. All right. So you can make this performance button right here change its function here in the BIOS, which is really cool. So basically you can have it switch between different fan profiles, or you can have it switch to maximum fan boost. So basically you just set it to max fans. It could be a max fan alternate button and you keep the same power profile, or you have a switch between different power profiles like balanced, enthusiast, and overboost. Operating mode currently is set to overboost mode, which is the highest level of performance. Control center OC recovery. So if you overclock, you can reset your GPU overclock settings so that if it's booting on, if it's not booting on load up, you can just reset your GPU overclock right there. All right, I think those are the key things you're gonna want out of the BIOS. You can change your boot preferences as well in here if you need to do that for Windows. But I wonder, one thing I didn't notice in here is I did not notice any XMP profile settings for the memory. So, because I did do memory overclocking with the Neo 17 last year from XMG, and I don't see it in here. So I'm gonna have to ask Tom if that has been removed, or if there's some other way to do it inside of here. So interesting. So we're going to exit without saving. That's fine. We'll go into Windows now. So that's an overview of the BIOS. We have removed the bottom, internal analysis. We need to analyze and review the ports next. That sounds good. All right. So let's talk ports on this guy. Notice we got this RGB light bar in the front. If we're talking about external features, let's go ahead and pull the laptop around, and I'm going to unplug the water cooler here. All right, so starting on the rear of the device, let's go ahead and pull the light down a little bit more. Starting on the rear, we have our water cooler input and output. Notice that there's this middle magnetic connector thing, so it kind of is like a little pin connector now to help hold the water cooler in place. You've got a USB-C with power delivery here, 100 watts, HDMI 2.1, Ethernet port, and then our power adapter port flanking dual fan exhausts on the rear. On the right side, we have a high-speed, full-size SD card, but keep in mind this is not UHS 2. I believe this is UHS 1, so I believe it's about an 85 or 90 or so megabytes per second coming through the SD. We also have two USB 3.2s, Type A's. And then on the left, we have another USB-A. We have another USB 3.2 Type A, and then a USB-C and a headphone port. So there's a lot of ports on this guy. We've got, that gives us a total of 5 USB, 3 USB-A, 2 USB-Cs, and then Ethernet, HDMI, water cooler, headphone port. I mean, that's about all the ports that you really would want on a gaming laptop. So it's great to see XMG, really filling the system out with lots of ports. One finger opening, no problem on this system as well. Now, we do have Windows Hello. You can see it just logged me in just using Windows Hello, which is, I think a really great feature to have on a laptop. I want to get a better angle showing you plugging in and unplugging the water connector. So this okay, notice that the water pump just turned on, but nothing's coming out of here because these are water sealed unless it's plugged in. So notice there's also a little pin right here in the middle. That's going to go in to the center pin here, and we just plug it in just like that. And now it's snug in there, and it's also magnetic with the little pin connector. It really holds it in there. And I would expect a little bit of drops to occur regularly when you're plugging and unplugging it, just because of the way the little rubber seals work. So then we would plug the power adapter in as well, and we're good to go to use the laptop now. Okay, so let's talk about water cooler control and bloatware evaluation, webcam quality. Yeah, so bloatware on this machine, it's fantastic. There's almost none. You have the control center already pre-installed, which is how you control the laptop. And then besides that, there was no antivirus. You had some of the default Windows applications like Spotify, LinkedIn, some of those things installed, but basically nothing else pre-installed. So A+ for lack of bloatware. Let's check webcam quality. There is Windows Hello, as I mentioned. Let's see how good the camera is. All right, so here I am talking to the camera. The color correction that it just did was very good. It matched the correct white balance very quickly. Initially, it wasn't perfect, but it switched it very quickly, which is great to see. It's picking up details pretty well. I can clearly read the GH5 and Lumix on my camera there. I can see individual beard hairs. That said, the image is pretty noisy, I would say, and not super high resolution, but it's still pretty good. So I'm recording a video right now. Let's go ahead and do some typing while I'm talking, and let's see how the audio sounds here at the end of the recording. And let's go also take a couple pictures. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the pictures. So here is the first one. Individual beard hairs can be seen, which is really great to see, but it does also kind of noise reduction coming in. It's not great image quality. It's not bad. I would say it's above average overall. And notice the color is worse. My face is more yellowy. And then this one is better. I think it's probably because of these background lights messing with the white balance of the camera. And here's the video. Let's go ahead and play the video. Here I am talking to the camera. Here's the audio. The color correction that it just did was very good. It matched the correct white balance very quickly. Initially, it wasn't perfect, but it switched it very quickly. Not super high resolution, but it's still pretty good. So I'm recording a video right now. Let's go ahead and do some typing while I'm talking, and let's see how the audio sounds here at the end of the recording. Well, the keyboard noise was pretty apparent, which is sad, but the video quality, I think, looks better in the final image than it did in the little preview image as we were recording it. So that's really good. Overall, I give the webcam an 8 out of 10. Definitely still some room for improvement, but this was much better than last year's XMG Neo 17. So that's a thumbs up. Okay. Next, up. Keyboard and mouse. Let's do it. So let's talk keyboard, mouse, lighting, and all of that goodness. All right, so this is the control software. I'm just gonna rotate the screen a little bit so you guys can see it better. There's a lot of background glare if I go to that side. Let's move the camera. All right, I think that's good. So, light settings inside of the control center. This is the software you use to control it. There's an idle timer. You can set it to be never 1 hour, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'd probably set it to like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes or something, you know, so that the backlight does turn off if you're not using the laptop. I think 15 seconds is a little too short, personally. So under the keyboard backlight, they have a bunch of different settings now that you can use to customize your keyboard experience. This is a per key RGB keyboard, so there's all kinds of different animations. Let's go ahead and mess with some of these. All right, I'm gonna zoom out. I'm gonna turn this light off so we can see the illumination better. All right, let's go to monocolor. This is where you can select an individual color of your choosing. You got breathing, which is going to, you know, fade in and out on a group of colors or a select color. Wave, which is going to continuously move through different colors. I believe you can select the colors right here that you want it to move through. Reactive, I believe that's going to... Interesting. Reactive seems to just be throwing random keys under illumination. I don't know. Rainbow, which is basically sets the laptop to a bunch of different colors spread across, but it's not animated, I don't think. As far as I can tell, let me see. Yeah, rainbow appears to not be animated, but I do think rainbow looks really good. Ripple. So ripple is an animation. It does not react to you. I thought it would be reactive, but it's not. Raindrop is going to be randomly lit keys. Marquee is going to be kind of a snake animation. Spark. Interesting. I don't know why anyone would want this kind of animation. Aurora. Looks like it does one row of keys out to the sides. Music, which I'm guessing reacts to your audio. Yeah, so this reacts to your audio level that you have going out of your laptop, which I could see some people doing that. And then this one is game mode. WASD and arrow keys lit up only. Kind of interesting. I don't know. I think rainbow is the way to go for keyboard backlighting on the Neo 16. It's not, in my opinion, the animation from the controller is not as good as something like the Razer or Legion series, because those ones can continuously and smoothly animate out a color sequence. And I think those just look better or classier. And that is what it is. All right. Systems Reality Team says, do you have a guess on what the performance uplift will be from a 4080 to 5080 laptop GPU? Not sure yet. Not sure yet. I need to look more into the leaks. I think we've seen desktop 5080 and 5090 leaks, but I don't think we've really seen any laptop leaks yet. I don't know if usually they come out with the desktop ones first, and then they'll come out with the laptop ones. So I'm expecting the desktop ones probably before the end of the year, and then the laptop ones probably, I don't know, announced probably in January, and then released maybe in March or something. So about 6 months out probably would be my guess for the release time for the 5000 series. Maybe a little bit sooner or a little bit later. Okay. All right. Let's talk light bar. So the light bar in front, you can see, is currently animated in a smooth transition. And it looks good. I like the light bar. It's kind of a shame it doesn't cover the entire front of the laptop, in my opinion. But the light bar still has a nice classy look to it and will definitely help you help your machine look way cooler. Now you can set it to a mono color, which allows you to switch the colors that you want to use. You can set it to a breathing, which is going to let it switch between different colors and light back up again. You've got the wave, which is what I had it set to, and then you have clash, which is this side swiping animation. And then you also have meteor, which is, I guess, a sliding style animation. But the one I like is probably wave, just because it's a nice smooth transition with the light bar in front. Looks really good. So overall, this is the extent of the lighting on the laptop, though. Just a front light bar. There's no rear lighting or anything like that for the logo or the rear vents or anything. But still, it adds a nice gamer aesthetic to the laptop, which is great. I like that. Okay, display test is next. Let's see how bright the display is on this unit. So I've got my Spider 5 Elite. Gonna go ahead and get this thing plugged in. All right, loading up. Looks like I need to put the serial number in real quick. All right. So we are ready to do our test for the display. There we go. So this is going to give us our overall color gamut for the display. Keep in mind that the Spider 5 Elite tends to underestimate the display value by like 7 to 8%. Systems Reality says, I heard the 5080 laptop still only have 12 gigs of RAM. 5090 sticks with 16 gigs. That would, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I'm hoping for 24 and 16. That'd be a lot better, but. All right, so doing brightness check. Now it's going to, this Spider 5 Elite is going to test how much light comes from the display. When it's looking at a dark square and a white square, this will give us our contrast ratio, as well as our nits brightness on the display. Eric says, do you think iGPUs will be able to replace low-end discrete GPUs in gaming laptops like the 2050 or 3050? Yeah, I think it already has for some gamers at least. Some people are just owning a Steam Deck or an ROG Ally for their lightweight gaming. And then they might have a desktop or a high-powered laptop for their more serious stuff. Or just have a regular laptop for just doing general productivity. Or maybe they hook the ROG Ally up to a docking station, and that's all they use, you know? Depends on what kind of performance you really need out of your system. If you're looking for high FPS gaming, you still need to have a discrete GPU, really, because the iGPU stuff in most modern games is not going to get you near the performance for high FPS gaming. Typically, you know, it might get you 30 or 50, 30 to 50 in a lot of the newer titles on low settings. But if you want high FPS, you're probably going to still need to have that at least an RTX 4050 or higher, because it is way more powerful. An RTX 4050 is way more powerful, like 3 to 4 times as powerful as the iGPUs still. So, and the 4050 just means that you can play everything on ultra pretty much at 1080p. So, yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look. What did we get for our results? Interesting. So this tested at 94% of sRGB, 71% Adobe, 72% of the P3. So factoring in the 7 to 8% of sRGB coverage, that means we're actually testing close to 100%, or if not over 100% sRGB. Let's go ahead and take a look at the brightness. 523 nits brightness with 850 to 1 contrast ratio, which is very good. It can also get pretty dim at 27.7 nits brightness, 220 nits at 50% brightness. So there you go. I mean, that is, I think, a really solid display for gaming. 500 plus nits for general use is going to allow you to see the display really well. And then having a little bit above 100% sRGB is going to give you plenty of color for the vast majority of games to enjoy the gameplay and have a colorful overall experience. That said, you know, we're looking at around 77% of or 79% of P3 color gamut, which is not that good for content creators and those of you that really want to have a more color saturated display or gaming experience. So that's certainly a con. This is definitely one of the cons for me. If I were to be looking at this machine, I'd be like, I don't really want to give up my display quality to go for a bit more performance. That's what my analysis would be currently. So I really hope for a 2025 version of this machine, they at least offer a higher end color gamut display than this one. Okay. So time to get into a little bit of laptop control software analysis. So this is going to be how to control the laptop real quick. Since this one is fairly complex to control, and you're going to have to control the water cooler as well as your default system fans, you definitely want to understand the control software before, you know, setting something wrong and potentially messing something up, you know. So the control center is the application that XMG has you use to control the software and control everything with the laptop. Under general settings, they give you a lot of functionality, including FN lock for F1 through 12, powered USB port for when the laptop is asleep or shut down, automatic boot, disable pop-ups from caps lock and FN lock, some nice extra settings there. Device manager, enabling, disabling Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, webcam. There is also a webcam shutter right here. You can block the webcam with a shutter. So there's dual webcam shutoffs, basically. GPU settings, you can set it to dedicated GPU only mode. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you. You can set it to dedicated GPU only mode, which means you're not going to be able to switch it to Intel graphics card without rebooting the system. So to make the change from dedicated GPU mode to hybrid or iGPU only mode, which is what you want to do if you want to go for max battery life, you're going to have to restart the system. You can also, so within hybrid though, if you switch it to hybrid, then you'll be able to use NVIDIA Advanced Optimus to switch on the fly, which can be really useful if you're going to constantly be plugging and unplugging and all of that. The main reason to use iGPU only mode is if you want to optimize for max battery and you want to make sure that the NVIDIA GPU does not accidentally wake up ever. That's basically my problem with Windows laptops right now with NVIDIA GPUs. So often the NVIDIA GPU will just wake up from some random application in the background, accessing it, and then boom, your battery life is tanked. So iGPU only mode just completely prevents that from happening. So you get guaranteed longer battery life. Key remapping, if you don't like one of the key maps, you can actually remap it here in the software. Under performance, we have different performance modes. We've got Overboost. We also have custom profiles. Let's go to custom. When you click on custom, it actually brings up another option for custom profiles. You can change your temperature limit. So if you don't want it to go as high as 95 degrees, you can set it to be lower, all the way down to 75. You can set individual power limits for the sustained power limit for when you're under a dual load. You also have peak power limits up to 250 watts, or you can set this to a range, right? So if you want to have it be continuously up to 205 watts, which is the highest end, most wattage that I've ever seen in a system, you can do that. And as long as it stays below 95 degrees Celsius, it'll still keep trying to put out 205 watts of power in the performance, which is insane. That is absolutely insane for a laptop. So we're going to be trying to test this out today in Cinebench R23 and R24. That said, these custom profiles also need to be paired with the XMG Oasis profile. Okay, so right now we're disconnected from our water cooler. We need to connect. This is going to connect us through Bluetooth to the system in the back here. Notice that when I connected, it turned into rainbow RGB on the system. If I disconnect, notice that the rainbow RGB goes away, and now it's blue, indicating that it's ready to be connected to, but it's not currently connected. So we're going to connect again, and now it's connecting. We're connected, and the fan will start spinning and cooling the laptop now. So that's, I think, a really cool feature for just knowing what the status of the water cooler is at a glance. So we want to do maximum when we are when we're doing our performance testing. We're going to have it set to maximum, but if you want it to be automatic, that'll keep the water pump from making as much noise when you're not using the system as much. In general, I would keep it more like automatic or maybe high power or something. But if you also want low fan noise, you can also set it to quiet, and it'll still be better than air cooled, probably, I think, but it's going to not be as noisy. So you get to pick your poison here on what you want for performance profiles. Just know that maximum is not, it's not quiet. Maximum is not as, you hear the audio from the pump going. Let me show you. So I'm going to put the mic right next to it, and then I'm going to click maximum. So you can hear that water pump going, it's not super loud, but it's definitely an audible difference. Okay. So under application profiles, you can have it set so that it switches into balanced, enthusiast, or overboost with a certain application, which is pretty cool. That's a cool feature. So there's also enable automatic GPU overboost. All right. So GPU overboost is basically a way to boost, to overclock your GPU. All right, so you can set it up to 250 on the, you can set it up to 250 on the core overclock, and then you can set it up to 500, or you can set it up to 1,000 for the memory overclock, but we're just going to do like 500. All right, so this is probably what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to do about 200 for the overclock today in our performance testing, 500 for our OC. Yeah. So that's basically an example of configuring the software for highest possible performance. Overboost will do a lot of that without you having to do anything, but it won't quite be as good of an overclock. It'll be a little bit less aggressive than what I just set, I believe. So, and then of course you have the light settings, which I already went over, but you can change the keyboard and light bar settings there. Under battery, you have high capacity mode, balanced mode, or eco mode, meaning that you can set it so that it goes to, I believe, like 80% and charges a little slower. Eco mode, I think probably use more like 60%. I haven't checked the exact percentages that these use, but basically it reduces how fast the battery is charged, which improves the longevity of the battery. And then the high capacity mode will set it straight to 100% and keep it there as fast as possible whenever you plug in the laptop. So it'll aggressively charge the machine when you plug it in, which again can slightly damage it, but it's not really like, it's like normal damage through wear and tear. I would say balanced mode is probably the way to go, unless you know you're going to be taking the laptop away from the wall regularly. Then go to high capacity mode or high capacity mode. So now under display settings, you can do some color calibration in here with color saturation and other settings. Device information just lets you know some basic stuff. So you've got your laptop, your CPU, your total memory, and your status and the about. Some basic stuff, not really much point to come in here. The main areas you need to know: performance and the light settings and the battery area. I think the software is simple to use and overall good. It's not much to complain about for the laptop software evaluation. Let's go ahead and do our speaker test and see how good the speakers are. I'm also going to go ahead and just set it to automatic for the water pump, so it doesn't make any noise during our speaker test. We'll go ahead and back this guy up a little bit and also put a couple things away. All right. Okay. So speaker test is next. All right. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and get this thing plugged in too for my mouse. The trackpad's great to control this machine with, but mouse is still easier when you have all this stuff to reach across. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and open our music. Let me turn the brightness of the display down a little bit. Sorry about that. Trying to get this thing rearranged a little. All right, it also looks like my Blade 18 is being a little bit noisier. Let me go ahead and set it to a little quieter fan profile for my Blade 18. There we go. Beautiful. All right, so here's our default sound profile. 41.3. Peter Spacey Roar is going to be our first song. Volume is set to 100%. Let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, when the bass was by itself, I was pretty impressed. The bass is clean, it sounds good. But as soon as everything else came in, it became pretty muddled. So, yeah, not great also on the volume. Like, it wasn't getting that loud. I was a little surprised that it was so quiet, actually. Let me just... Because... I guess it's getting up to 83 decibels. It is forward facing, like the speakers come out right here, and our decibel meter is kind of like right in front, so maybe it was kind of missing. I'll pull the decibel meter back just a little bit to make it a little more fair. Faded Aeon Half-Life is next. All right, well, I'm very impressed with once everything kicked in, about 20 seconds into that song, you got the mids, the highs, the lows. It sounded pretty good. But when it was just the piano and it was very high pitched, the clarity was not, I think, very good on just those highs. All right, next up, Deuce Williams, La La Love You Like.
I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la.
Okay, vocals sounded pretty good. The bass could still be better. So I think this comes down to, we have basically a 2-speaker system. And when you don't have dedicated subwoofers and tweeters, when you end up mixing the audio together, like the bass and the mids and the highs, they all kind of cancel each other out in a sense. Like they just don't, it sounds pretty good when they're more isolated, except for the highs. The highs didn't sound very good when they were isolated. But when it was just the bass, it's pretty thumpy. It's pretty noticeable. But then once the mids come in, the bass gets a little more drowned out and the mids become prioritized. So overall, I give the speakers like an 8.1. 8.1? I think that's fair. Maybe it should be a little higher, 8.2. Let's go 8.2. The speakers are, I think, an improvement over last year's XMG Neo 17. I can't remember what I rated them last year, but I do think these are a little bit better. But just compared to the current 2024 models that are coming out, these are not as loud as those new ones, and these ones don't, it's only a 2-speaker system, so the speakers just don't have that range of audio that I would expect from a laptop that costs so much, over $3,000, right? So I would hope for better speakers in the future. But these speakers will work just fine for casual gaming, casual music listening to. They're just not going to be professional level or ultra high end at all. So let's go ahead and go to fan noise testing with the decibel meter next. So we're going to go ahead and load up 3D Mark. Is there any EQ? Good question, Britt. I don't think so, but let's just see if they've added like Atmos or Dolby. So that's not it. I don't think there is. Oh, there is Nahimic. Let's see. Okay, so Nahimic was on, and so you can adjust. So these are the settings. They were enabled. The effects were on. You have voices, bass, and treble. You can adjust up and down. So if you want to have more bass or more treble volume or more focus on the speakers, focusing on a certain area, you can do that. And you can change the mode from music, movie, communication, gaming, and smart. So there is some customization that you can do to improve your audio quality. Good question, Britt. Okay, so we're going to be doing 3D Mark in a loop now for our speaker, our decibel testing. And thanks again, Britt, for being a member. I appreciate your support. All this time, still being a member it's amazing. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and run this time spy in a loop. All right, so we're going to start with the water cooler attached for our audio modes. We're going to start in the quietest mode. Actually, let's start in maximum mode. All right, and let's just get this set up here. So right now I have you can see I've got the water cooler right next to the laptop. It's very close to the decibel meter. It's only about a foot away. So we're gonna see how loud this whole system is. Remember, default decibels in the room, 41.3 or right around 41.5 decibels in this room for our default audio. So right now we are running Time Spy in a loop. We're doing about 80 to 90 watts on that CPU. We've got 174 watts of power. I'm just gonna say 170 plus watts of power. It's gonna vary from 170 to 175, 177. It's gonna go around up and down in this range. But we're getting basically full GPU performance right now and high levels of CPU performance, very high levels of CPU performance in game. Our temps are currently 64 degrees, 74 degrees. Let's see how loud we are right now with that water pump. .5 decibels, and the main noise right now is the water pump. It's got the nice woo kind of a sound to it. Let's switch to high power. We're going to go to high power mode for the water pump. And it just got quite a bit quieter. So notice that our performance on the CPU in particular went down, right? We were pushing 70 to 80 watts quite often. Now we're pushing 50 to 60 watts, around 60 watts mainly. But the pump noise did go down. Okay, now we did 70. So it is going up pretty high still on that CPU. Interesting. Our CPU and GPU temps have come up a little as well. But not much. Still in the 60s and 70s is excellent. All right, let's see how loud it is. So that water pump plus gentle fans on the laptop doing around 47 decibels. Which, that's very reasonable. That's super quiet overall for a full powered system. Like this is, this level of performance we're seeing right now is very similar to ultra high end performance. Like you'd be able to play the highest level performance almost. The only thing is the CPU power limit being a little bit lower. But very, very good. Let's go to quiet now and see what kind of performance we get. So under quiet, let's see if the performance goes down at all. All right, it's a very interesting thing, right? Because if the performance stays high in the 60 to 70 watt range, and the temperature just goes up a little bit, then that's fine. You know, like there's nothing wrong with having 80 degrees on your CPU and then having a quiet system all around. Like, to me, it looks like the system has not really changed performance at all in terms of the output that we would see in frame rates, you know, in actual gameplay. But the loudness of the system is much quieter now. So let's go ahead and take a look at how loud it is. So now we're looking at full levels of performance at 44.9 decibels. So under 45 decibels and still getting max performance, are basically equivalent of max air-cooled performance out of the system. Is pretty amazing. All right, that is pretty dang amazing. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some air-cooled tests. Now we're gonna go ahead and disconnect the XMG Oasis. So that turns off the Oasis, and that means we're going to switch to all air-cooled now. So it's going to be just like any other laptop. Since we're going to be doing air-cooled, I'm also going to elevate the back a little bit. Okay, and we are in custom profile right now. Okay. So under custom profile, we should be getting some excellent performance. Let's see. So we're still doing 70 to 85 watts of power to the CPU, but we are hitting 95 degrees, up to 95 degrees, and then thermal throttling down. So keep in mind that our temps are on the spicier side, but still within safe ranges, is the way I would describe them. But you know, this is the difference between XMG and a lot of other companies. XMG lets you push the laptop to the maximum. And if you want to turn it down so it doesn't go to that high of temperatures, it's as simple as a click in the control center and you can set it to go to a lower temperature. And at the same time, it'll also have reduced performance. So notice the GPU boost clock is quite a bit lower. We're looking in the, 200 or so boost clock reduction on that GPU, even though it's the same theoretical wattage. That's what the water cooler boost does to plugging it in. And the CPU temps and GPU temps are higher than they were. The water cooler really helped keep this thing cool. All right. Under custom profile, is there a way to set it to be max fans? I'm not sure. I think this sets it to max fan. Oh, that's the max fan switch speed. Okay, I'm gonna click fan boost. There. Now we have max fans. Okay, so now that we're doing max fans, let's see what the temperatures are like. All right, so we have it set to max. We have a GPU overclock, and we have a CPU set to be very high power limits and everything. Let's give this like a minute or two to adjust the temperatures to the new max fan. And then we'll do another evaluation of the performance. Let me go ahead and check chat. Is this faster than the MSI Raiders? Yes, this is going to be faster. At least when it's plugged into the water cooler, it'll be faster by a little bit. But this will be about the same speed, or basically identical speeds, when it's on air cooled. It'll be very, very similar on air cool. Right now we're on air cooling. So, all right. So notice the CPU temperature is staying pegged pretty dang high, but our wattage is also pretty dang high as well, with 175 plus watts on the GPU and around 75 watts. So we're pulling up to 250 watts total system power pretty often. Anywhere from 230 to 250 watts on the system, which is just very impressive. Let's go ahead and see how loud this overboost is. So 54.5 decibels with maximum fans. All right, let's go ahead and let's go to normal overboost. So this is basically their XMG's default fan profile for high performance. Like this is like their turbo fan profile, basically. All right, we're gonna let this simmer for a moment. I'm gonna go to the bathroom and we'll see what the temperatures are when I get back. Okay, so here we are, overboost mode. We're doing 175 watts to the GPU. Notice the GPU boost clock is a little bit lower than when we have plugged into the water cooler. Our CPU temps are up in the 90 to 95 range, but performance is excellent. Let's go ahead and see how loud the system is. .52.5 decibels without the fan boost mode enabled. Let's go ahead and switch this to Enthusiast mode. This is going to be a high level of performance. This is going to be a high level of performance with a medium amount of fan noise. So 150 watts is the power limit in Enthusiast mode, which is going to give us like 95% of the performance, or maybe 90% of the performance on that GPU. It looks like the CPU is still cranking at 60 to 70 watts of performance, which is really good. I can definitely hear the fans coming down in volume. CPU temps are still on the spicier side. So again, if you're wanting to lower those CPU temps, you're going to want to go custom fan profile, and the custom profile, just go like this. Just drop it. You want to go to 85? You go to 85? Okay. All right. We're now at 85. All right. And that's going to limit our CPU power limit down, and that'll set the CPU temperature to exactly whatever we want it to be. So going back to Enthusiast mode, let's see how loud it is. All right, 50.5 decibels for the fan mode in Enthusiast. It's good, but not necessarily amazing. It seems pretty in line with what others have done. I didn't mean to close that. We're going to balance mode next. Let me try opening times by up one more time. And we got one more mode to test, and then we move on to the next segment. Since we have the regular fan mode, air-cooled mode, and the water cooler mode, it requires extra testing, right? So basically, in max fans, we're looking around 55 decibels. With overboost mode, we're looking at 52 decibels. With enthusiast mode, we're looking at 50 decibels. And balanced mode, looks like balanced mode is going to be dropping our CPU performance down to the 45 to 50 watt range, and then 150 watts to that GPU. And our CPU GPU temps looks like they're not as aggressive in balanced mode. Whoa. What's happening there? I don't know what's happening right now. Something with their balanced mode is not set correctly. Okay, that's better. Let's go back to balanced mode. Oh, that was a weird thing. Like the power limit's all suddenly set to like 15 to 20 watts on the GPU CPU, and obviously that's no good. So pretty interesting little glitch that happened there. Switching the fan profiles fixed the glitch right away though. That's something to be aware of. So something they can work on. So GPU temps are in the mid 70s, CPU temps in the high 70s. And performance and balance mode will still get you a lot of great gaming experience. You know, the only reason to really run the higher end modes probably is going to be really, really demanding games or competitive shooter type games where you really want to maximize the FPS. Okay, so let's see how loud balanced mode is. So right around 44 decibels, so about 3 decibels of noise for balanced mode. Let's go ahead and reconnect the XMG Oasis. All right. So, so yeah, I mean, XMG Oasis in quiet mode is not very loud, only around 45 decibels, and it provided equal to turbo fan speed mode of performance levels. It was impressive. That is very impressive for your fan noise. Overall balance to performance in terms of sound created versus performance level. Let's go ahead and go to our AIDA64 RAM speed test. Let's see here. Looks like just need to quickly install this. When it left, it started sounding like an airport. That's funny. So that's because my mic just ramps its sensitivity. You know, whenever I'm not talking, it's gonna just try to always have some sensitivity. So, all right. Okay. Here we are. We're ready to do our RAM speed test. We are set to max speed. Maximum. For performance profile, let's go to custom. With the fan boost, might as well, right? And so this is the maximum possible cooling with maximum Oasis and maximum fans at the same time. Let's go ahead and click Start Benchmark. So this is the Kingston Fury Impact RAM. Notice the timings here are extra tight. You know, we're looking at 40, 40, 40, 79, and command rate 2 on these. And I successfully overclocked this RAM in the Neo 17 with, I think I got it up to, what was this, 6,400 megatransfers instead of 5,600. And that put it over 100,000 for the read and write. Right now we're doing 86,000 megabits per second or megabytes per second, 77,000 megabytes write. Those are very good, far above average. You know, this is some of the fastest RAM that money can buy. $78,000 copy. Let's see what the latency is. That's going to be pretty important. 82 nanoseconds. Some fast read and write for the L1 cache. So these are some really good numbers, and shout out and thank you to AIDA64 for giving me a license to be able to test this in the full version. There's a link in the description if you want to test the AIDA64 on your own computer. They do offer a trial version, but you're not going to be able to see all of the data fields in the trial version. Clark Kent says, the problem with this is the extra cooler piece makes it not so portable. Yeah, well, you can use it like a regular laptop, you know, when you're just wanting to game on the go or whatever, and then whenever you're at home, you can plug in the cooler. So you don't have to use the cooler 24/7, just when you're at home is what I would do if I had this. So, I mean, as you can see, our memory speeds are excellent with the Kingston Fury Impact RAM. It's the RAM sticks that I would recommend. It's been some of the highest performance RAM that I've ever tested in terms of overall read, write, copy, and latency. And it's gonna overclock a little bit better, I think, than most other RAM out there, just because it's, I believe it's XMP certified. So they pretty much promise that it can do certain XMP profiles in the listing. All right, so that's our final results. Very fast latency, fast read and write. There's nothing really to complain about. It's not going to really boost many games' performances, but that's still some very good AIDA64 performance. All right, let's go ahead and move into the next test, CrystalDiskMark. So this will be a test of the Samsung 990 Pro. I'm going to try to move this a little closer while we're doing this test. So 7,000 for the read. That is excellent for a single drive. Yawns are so relaxing. So, chat, let's talk about what do you guys want to talk about while we're waiting for some of these tests? Hit me with some questions or some thoughts. What do you think about the new the problems that Intel had with their 13th and 14th gen desktop CPUs? And do you think those are going to impact laptops? My personal take right now is that it's probably not. Probably not affecting laptops, and that's as far as we can tell based on what Intel has said. And companies like XMG have also come out and said that they have not seen any laptops crashing. They have none of their customers having these issues. So I personally, and I haven't had any issues with any of the laptops I've tested either. Basically, I don't think it's affecting laptops to the best of my knowledge, but it is a guess. There's hard to have hard data on this, just because it's not like you're going to be able to do like a accurate survey of all hardware out there. Okay, so there's our final results. 7,000 read, 6,800 write. Very, very good overall speeds, very responsive. SSD here. It's going to be great for gaming, great for content creation. It's a Samsung 990 Pro. It's a very good SSD. All right, so keep in mind that the SSD speeds will vary. Cinebench R23 is next. And let's also get HW info pulled up. Steven says they do not impact laptops 100%. Besides that, Intel stated 5 years return for the desktop CPUs that suffer the issue, so nothing to worry about at all. Well, that's true, but also if your laptop crashes or melts down or something, or your computer crashes and melts down, even if it is covered under warranty and Intel's going to give your money back, it still can be a big hassle to have it happen to you, to lose your computer like that. So, all right, so we're going to do some multi-core testing. Again, we're on max profile. Under custom profile, we're set to 205 consistent power pull. We're going to set our temperature limit to 95. We are not undervolted. And let's make sure that process less so is prioritizing Cinebench. Above normal it is. It's good. All right, so let's see this power pull in action, right? I'm very curious to see the power pull of this laptop. I'm gonna reposition the camera a little better so it's straighter on to the laptop if I can. Yeah. I can't wait to get my new tripod arms in the mail so I can set the camera a little bit better. Okay. Here we go. Let's see it. Let's see. I'm hoping. Let's see that big old power pull. CPU package power is only 130 watts. What is this? Why is it so low? What is going on? 135 watts? That's nothing. We got 27,830. Interesting. Let's try, I don't know. Let's try going to performance profiles. Let's go to overboost mode. CPU is only at 72 degrees. That's true. Like our temperatures are great. Let's just go to standard overboost. You know, I'm expecting a higher wattage power pull to the CPU. I don't know. Maybe it's the load line balancing that we have going on right now. So, like looking at our core effective clocks, we're only doing 4 gigahertz on the P cores and 3.1 gigahertz on the E cores. It's not really that high of CPU, GPU clocks, you know, and I'm expecting more. 28,140. All right, like I'm definitely expecting more out of this. Let's go to XMG Oasis. We have it set to maximum. I don't know. I mean, maximum should do it, right? Like what's going on? Like, why are we not getting? Like we should be pulling like more like 4.2, 4.3 gigahertz, I think, for the P cores and 3.4 for the E cores. And we should be pulling, there's 140 watts, but like we should be pulling like closer to 200 watts. Like that's what we did previously with the Neo 16 I tested at CES 2023. So 28,500 that run. Let's try Cinebench R24 and see if that is any better. I don't think it will be, but because we should be able to push over 30,000. Steven says, seems like something is limiting it. Yeah, I agree. And I'm thinking we need to go into the BIOS probably to troubleshoot it. Let's try a run in Cinebench R24 though. So Cinebench R24 is running. Again, we're only pulling 128 watts. It says it's just preparing. Let's close 23. All right, it's actually running now. 140 watts. P cores are doing 4.1. E cores 3.3. So the E cores are higher now. That's better. We're on a 10-minute run. I don't want to do a 10-minute run. Let's do one run at a time. Especially if we're going to need to troubleshoot it. Might as well, right? All right, so here we are. We're running again 4.05, a little bit over 4 gigahertz on all the P cores, 3.2, 3.3 on all the E cores. Temperatures are pretty much excellent though. Like we are hitting in the mid 70s, which is insane. So good for like 130 to 140 watts of power. You know, like that's a good amount of wattage. Like that's a very good amount of wattage, and our temps are really, really good right now for that amount of wattage. But performance, I feel like, should be a little higher. Maybe something was updated to reduce power draw for safety or something. Maybe Intel became a little more conservative, or maybe XMG did with their BIOS. That said, we should hop into the BIOS after this run and just check our CPU settings again, make sure nothing is limiting it. Clark says, the laptops with 13th and 14th gen CPUs at Best Buy seem more discounted than the new Ultra Core chips or the AMD 370 ones. Yeah, well, those ones are also the newest ones that came out, Clark, so they almost always try to upcharge on the latest technology. You know, the 14th gen, 13th gen has been out for a year and a half. The 14th gen has been out for a half year or a little more than a half year. So makes sense. You know, they're trying to sell in the middle of the run, the production run. I mean, we're getting nice, consistent performance, very nice temperatures, low 80s. To mid 70s, depending on if you're looking at the package or the cores. And, you know, right around that 135 to 140 watt range, pretty consistently, 132, 133. Very interesting. You know, I am personally surprised that we're pulling this low wattage. That's my take so far. I'm very curious to see what we have in the BIOS that might affect this. Dun dun dun. I was expecting 200 watts too, Mark. That's what I was expecting. I don't know why. From the CPU specs, it's all running as expected. I mean, generally, I think yes. So we got 16,095. So basically 1,700. So 1,695. That's in line with a lot of the other i9 14900HXs, but not in line with what I would expect at a higher power draw. Like we should be pulling more power, is what I'm saying. Like I know Jared from Jared's Tech was getting like, I think it was 1900 to 2000 when he did the Cinebench R24 on this laptop. And he was pulling the higher wattage power pulse. So let's go into the BIOS and do a quick troubleshoot and see if we can figure it out. And if we can't, we're going to move on to the other game tests. But just know that we should be able to pull that 200 watts. If we're not, then something is up. Steven says, i9 14900HX has 157 watt max. It's what Intel specs say. So the thing is, we never hit 157 watts, even in this. But I know for a fact that I've tested this at CES. You can check my last live stream with the XMG Neo 16. And it went a lot higher than that. So Okay, I went past it. So we're gonna go here. So this is AC load line calibration. Let's just do no tuning for AC load line. And that's like basically another way to undervolt essentially. And just double checking in here that all these are set to default modes. Yep. Okay. So all of these are set to default. So there's no undervolt. And now there's also no load line adjustment either. So we'll see. Well, Steven, I'm just expecting, so I'm expecting it to, so in the control software, we set it to try to pull up to 205 watts continuously until it reaches thermal throttle, which is 95 degrees. So I'm expecting it to at least try to keep pulling more wattage until it hits 95 degrees. That's the behavior that I'm expecting for the performance, and we're not seeing that. That's the main thing that I'm pointing out. And if we're not seeing that, then there probably needs to be something updated. You know. So let's go to performance. Interesting. We don't have the XMG Oasis in here as an option anymore after we rebooted. That seems like a bug. Let's try opening and closing Control Center again. There it is. It was weird. Maybe I'll just set it to automatic and so I'm expecting it to try to pull 205 watts. Let's see if it does it this time after we disabled the load line calibration. A little bit higher CPU pull. 154 watts. That's better because we were only doing 130. You know, most I think we pulled was 140 something last time. So 156 watts now being pulled through. That is an improved higher level of performance by at least a little bit. And now we pulled over 30,000. So I don't know if that load line was causing a little bit lower performance for some reason. I would not normally expect that to cause an issue. Let's see what we get just running straight on Cinebench R23 window without switching anything up. Is there an 18-inch version? No, there's not. There's a 17 and a 16-inch version. So 30,709, that's probably about as good as we're going to get in here. Let's switch it over to Cinebench R24. Let's go ahead and run this. It's set to a 10-minute test. Let's not do a 10-minute test. Okay, so we're currently pulling 140 151 watts. Our CPU P cores are just over 4 gigahertz, E cores 3.35 gigahertz. Overall, I mean, it's good performance, but it's not really much better than what I get with my Blade 18 right now. And the Blade 18 doesn't have a water cooler attached to it, and it's thinner. I mean, it is an 18-inch though, but still. Temperature-wise, this is quite good. We're at 81 degrees. We did peak at 96 somehow. I don't know. Package is at 87, 90-ish. Core temps at 81. And we're doing 145, you know, pretty much continuously. I'm going to go ahead and reset our value so we can get a more precise average. There is apparently core thermal throttling that's occurred. Interesting. Let's try disabling our temperature limit. This is going to affect our benchmark results as well, by the way. Having HW info open will just impact them a little bit no matter what you do. It's not responding enough to actually make the change right now. There we go. Turning on fan boost. I'm going to set Oasis to maximum. Nothing is giving us more power, allowing us to push beyond the 157 watt max. Basically, this is what you're talking about, Steven. This is the wattage peak that you would expect. It could have been updated from Intel. So 4.05, 3.35, core temps at 79, package is at 85. So we're not maxing our temps really. And we could definitely theoretically pull more wattage and get a little bit better performance. So that time it has a little lower score. Let's just let it run focused just on the window, but I'm also going to put this over to the side so we can see some data while it runs. When is CES 2025 going to happen? That's going to be in January. Like the usually second week in January. So usually like January 7th or something. I have to double check when it is this year. But that's usually when those laptops will be announced, or the next gen of laptops will be announced. Historically, at least. Didn't get anything last year for GPUs, but that's the best bet, I think, for next gen or RTX 5000. Clark says he got a Zephyrus G16 open box with a 4070 Core Ultra 185H, 32 gigs of RAM for $1,909 Canadian. What is that in US? Like 1,600 or 1,700 or something? It's like, I don't know. Is that like a $500, $400 discount or something? Something like that. Potentially a really good discount. Slimify says, did 17-inch version get updated with the water cooling system like the 16-inch version or no? Selmify says, I like the pipe design that goes in the GPU and CPU. Yeah, like the heat plate, where it goes in and around the heat plate. That's only the 16. The 17 still has the water pipe loop going over top of the heat pipes. It's still effective, but it's primarily effective just for the GPU temps. A little bit of the CPU, but yeah. The 2024 Neo 16 is the way you want to go for the improved water cooling loop. Okay, Clark, that's pretty good. It's pretty good discount. We're getting there. So a little over 4 gigahertz, 3.35 on the E-cores. Temperatures are averaging 79 on the core, 86 on the package. And we did max at 94 temporarily, at least. It's not staying there now, but. Can you try this laptop with the Lano laptop cooler attached on the bottom and water cooling connected? I mean, if we could actually get it to pull higher level power limits, yeah, that could help. we could maybe try pushing to another level of performance. Okay, so we got 1,669 points. Somehow a little bit worse than the last test, 2 tests ago. I guess load line configuration giving us a slight improvement in performance while pulling less wattage. Yeah, you know, it's so interesting that we're not getting the extra big power watt pull that I was expecting for the CPU. So I'll have to ask Tom, and if I get any more information on why it wasn't pulling 205 watts, I'll put it in a pinned comment down below. All right, so let's move on to the next test. It's time to do Time Spy, and then we'll move into some games. Edward B says, I came late. Are you impressed with the performance? So, so far, the CPU only performance has been good, but not next level, really. It's just in line with a lot of other machines out there. So far, not blown away, not anything special. The cooling has been excellent. We were averaging well below thermal throttles, though. I think we're pulling around 140 watts or so consistently. And at the same time, we're only doing like 75 on the cores and 85 on the... Oh, you know what? I wonder... Because if it was thermal throttling to 85, maybe that's the reason why it didn't want to go beyond. I don't know. Let's just try Cinebench 23 real quick again. Because I just tried setting the thermal throttle to 94 or 95 instead. Because maybe the BIOS misremembered the max thermal limit or something. I'm checking. $29,000. Yeah, package power only doing around 155. 161 is the most it's peaked at. The Core Max seems like it's limiting itself to the 85-degree limit, which I had set earlier, but I don't know. Okay, let's go ahead and get Time Spy going. We might Need to do some more troubleshooting, but basically that is not the expected behavior. The expected behavior is for it to try to pull 205 watts of power continuously until it hits power limit throttling, and then it should be basically just keep going at the power limit throttle of doing 95 degrees Celsius. So we're under custom profile. We've got a 200/485 overclock. We've got everything set to temperature limit 95 degrees. XMG Oasis is set to maximum. So everything's cranking at the highest levels that I can set it to. We got Afterburner running. Let's go ahead and run Time Spy. Sumify says, is Ryzen 7945HX 3D worth it over the i9 14900HX? I think both CPUs are excellent. I don't think there's anything wrong with going for the 7945HX. The main issue is availability. The 7945HX is only available, I believe, in the SCAR 17X3D. And that doesn't have all the latest screens and chassis and all that stuff. So if I could buy my next laptop with the 7945HX, or maybe like the 8945HX or whatever comes out in the next gen, I would seriously consider it. I don't think that it's necessarily a light speed faster. In my comparison with the 7945HX and the i9 13th gen, it was very, very close. But in the games that I cared about, the Intel had slightly better performance. And so I think if you test a lot of games, you'll see a lot of back and forth action with it. But probably the 7945HX is slightly faster. And then in multi-core rendering, the 7945HX is also probably slightly faster. So, okay, so here we are. We're in Time Spy. Notice our boost clock, 2250 is very high, and much higher than when we're on air-cooled. Air-cooled only, we're doing closer to 2000 to 2100. And so we've got that overboost going on right now. So we have an overclock being applied, and then we have very high CPU power limits, high CPU clock speeds, and look at our temps are excellent, 55 and 69. We have fan boost mode on, and we have the maximum speed going on the water cooler, so it's kind of like the loudest possible situation, but the temps would still be pretty dang good, even if we didn't have max fans and all that stuff on. So we're just trying to go for maximum possible performance, is why everything is set so high. Steven says, if you can choose different performance modes inside the software, like on Lenovo when pressing FN plus Q, switching back and forth will reassign the correct wattage power limits that it should. Yeah, Steven, I did switch the different power profiles several times. So, I don't know. I tried switching it to custom mode, tried switching it to overboost mode, tried switching it back to custom mode. It didn't want to increase the power limit on the CPU. You know, it could be, you know, through the latest Windows updates and all that stuff. Intel is like, we don't want any more CPU problems, so we're going to really limit all of our stuff down to not going to the maximum potential wattage or something, you know, I don't know. So it could have been something that XMG doesn't have control over. But I mean, it's still excellent performance. It's still what you'd expect for an i9 14900HX. It's just not what I was expecting because I was expecting a higher power limit pull. So right here, we're pulling 130 watts in the middle of that gaming test. I think it may have pulled a little more than that for part of it, but okay. Graphics score, 23,152. Phenomenal. That is excellent. You could probably overclock this a little bit more. Last year's Neo 17 actually did push beyond all the way up to like 24,000 something. So this is a little bit worse, but that could also just be silicon lottery. 23,152 is definitely above average for an RTX 4090. 17,500 for a CPU score feels a little bit low. I know I did a previous run earlier today and it was over 18,000. So that's interesting. Let's one more time. I'm really curious to see what we're pushing. I just cycled through all the fan profiles and went back to custom mode again. Let's see if it fixes it. I don't think it will. But because we also saw a slightly lower CPU performance, could have been because I disabled the load line. That could be why it's getting slightly worse now. Yeah, this is still the same situation going on here. So, okay, so that's the Time Spy results. They're very good. They're just they're not exceptionally good. Well, I mean, they are still better than what you'll get in just about any other laptop that's not water cooled. So yeah, but it is not. It is not as high as I would ideally love, because I know that I've gotten higher with my last testing on the Neo 17. Again, could just be silicon lottery, though. You know, there's a large amount of variance when you're pushing machines to their theoretical limits. You know, if you're pushing the machine to its normal stock limits, then the variance won't be very much. It's going to be pretty dang consistent. Like almost all laptops will get to that standard stock speed, which for a RTX 4090 is around 21,500 to 22,000. You know, so we're way above the stock speed of 21.5, 22. We're at 23.2. So significantly above stock, but just not the maximum that I've ever tested. Okay, time to move into our game testing phase. We are in Apex Legends for our first game. Let's do this. So I just need to make a few changes here. Oh. This is going to be hard because the keys, the left shift key is different. It's smaller. I'm gonna mispress it probably a few times. Not used to this. I also need to reduce the sensitivity a little bit. All right. So this machine does have G-Sync. Let's go to our video settings. Right now we're on maximum settings right now. This performance is very, very good for max settings. All right, so keep in mind, we have a refresh rate of 240 FPS. So, I mean, as long as we're doing over 240, I'm happy. I mean, our 1% low is a little bit below the theoretical maximum. You know, 170 for our 1% lows. But still, this is super responsive. I'm not seeing any ghosting. It's very easy to aim. And yeah, I mean, we can switch it to low settings. All right, so we're on low settings now, and our 1% lows are now almost to our maximum screen refresh rate of 240. We're at 219. I mean, that is freaking amazing. Look at our temps as well. 61 degrees on the GPU, CPU at 80. We gotta grab some more light ammo. So, I mean, this performance is about as good as it gets in Apex Legends, that's for sure. All right, let's move on to our match. All right. Salmify says, my laptop, when I restart every time, puts it to balanced mode in control panel. Is there a way to permanently keep it in the option I choose instead of every time I restart, I switch from balance to high performance? That depends on your laptop, Salmify. You might be able to set the fan profile in the BIOS for a lot of laptops, and that will set your default to be whatever it is. But usually when you restart it, it'll go to, I don't know. Usually it'll just go to whatever you had last time. But sometimes you can set a default fan profile in the BIOS. So you can, I would check that as the first thing you can do. Let's open an Apex pack. Ah, we didn't get anything special. Just 2 rares. Let's do one more. Come on. Give us something good. Oh my goodness. Give us at least a purple. Okay, that's some crap luck. Hey, we got a purple. We don't know what it is. We got a purple and epic. All right, so we're in the Thunderdome. Let me make sure the camera is positioned well, and I'm going to scooch over just a little bit more. Okay, so Slumify is just your Windows performance mode. That's defaulting to balanced. I mean, oftentimes that doesn't even make a difference to real world applications, but let's do this guy. We'll go sniper. Oh, come here. We just annihilated that guy. Gonna recharge here. This is like a sniper. Oh, we got that guy. Oh, we're doing so much damage. This is just a sniper battle. I love it. Okay, I reset our FPS count. Let's see. Oh, I annihilated that guy, but he's survived. Oh, come on. This is a silly sniper battle. Let's go ahead and try to get some up close fights here. I helped my teammate out there. I don't like the marksman. Alright, I'll take the Spitfire. Not a fan of the bow either. Double kill, let's go! Ooh, we got flanked. Hey. Our performance is excellent. 276, 170 FPS for our averages. I mean, that's about as good as it gets, you know? In Apex Legends, in a laptop, it's excellent. All right. Moving on to our next game. And the note, I did not see any ghosting as well. So this laptop display, we got G-Sync. It's responsive. It's excellent display for gaming. Clark says, I couldn't control myself. I bought it. All right. Well, congrats on your new Zephyrus G16, man. That's awesome. I'm nervous it's going to get lost in shipping. I mean, yeah, what Steven says, you'll just get refunded if it gets lost in shipping. Yeah, I hope you like it. That's very similar to the one I'll be basically comparing the one that you're talking about, because you bought a Zephyrus Z16 with the Core Ultra 9. I'll be comparing that one and the Ryzen 9 AI version in an upcoming video. Live stream. We'll do a bunch of CPU tests, basically. All right, so let's go ahead and... Well, Best Buy has a good return policy, Clark, too. So if you get it in the mail and it sucks, you can usually get it, refunded. So just going over the settings here. Baldur's Gate 3 is our next test. QHD plus, no VSync, no frame cap, DLSS on quality. Everything is set to ultra or high. All right, we're going to go ahead and play. So the big things we're looking for is our 1% lows, usually stutter to like the 30s. So far, it's been quite good. 64 is very good, I think, for 1% lows in Baldur's Gate 3. All right. Especially when it switches to the different AI units. you know, having good 1% low performance is crucial to having a smoother gaming experience, because you can see the occasional frame blips when it switches. But I think it's still quite good though. Our 1% low is quite a bit better than most. So we're averaging 200. So that's our benchmark right there. 212 FPS, 60 for our 1% low. I mean, that's phenomenal. 1% low is usually in the 30s for this test. And I attribute the higher 1% low to the Kingston Fury impact RAM as well as the higher CPU power limit. Those two things put together are, I think, the reason why it's getting such a good result. That said, I believe the Titan 18HX had better 1% low performance in this game by a little bit. Okay, moving into Counterstrike 2 now. Since I've been, you know, I haven't streamed in a month and a half, 2 months. I've been debating about which games to add to the benchmark list. I'm very curious what y'all think would be a good one to add. I was thinking God of War Ragnarok might be the next best one to add. I'm thinking of playing through that. I love the original God of War. So I think I would love to get Ragnarok and actually play through it as well. All right, so full resolution, that's good. We're gonna go to a very high graphics preset. And I think that's fine. We're just gonna do very high graphics preset. Let's go to game, and we just want to make sure that we show FPS. Show frame time and FPS always. Okay. Sounds good. We'll hop into a game now. So any Counter-Strike 2 players out there? I haven't been playing it much, you know, if I'm being honest. I played so much Counter-Strike 1.6 and then a little bit of CSGO. And then I haven't really touched Counter-Strike 2. You know, it seemed like the exact same game, but with better smokes. And slightly improved graphics in some ways. But CSGO had better physics, I felt like. So that's kind of like the awkward part for me. Okay, so FPS is being shown in the top right. We're currently doing 300. 150, 297. Let me move my window down a little bit there. So you can see our FPS. We're averaging over 240 right now. It is smooth. Oh, we got shot from behind. Nice double kill. Nice triple kill. Hey. Hey. If you can't tell, I do like the op. It's quite nice. Nice little 5-banger so far. Doesn't look good. Oh no. We're in second place right now. No. All right, we'll go a couple more rounds. We're dead. Like, I've got the scout. I gotta go for headshots only. Ah. Oh. The scout does not very good damage unless you get a headshot. Oh, 3 hits, 88 damage, did not finish him. Shot him in the leg. Okay. Well, we're third right now in the server. 16 kills, 8 deaths. This is going to be a peak performance type of game. Gameplay for CS Go or Counterstrike 2. It's going to be about as good as it gets. You know, we're averaging, I'm pretty sure, over 240 FPS. Last death. Double kill. Can we get another one? Triple kill. And we're dead. Okay. Good game. Almost got first. Let's go ahead and move to the next game. It's fun. Steven says, damn, you're good at playing CS2. Thanks. I have thousands of hours of Counter-Strike 1.6 experience, and apparently I haven't lost all my skills yet. Cyberpunk 2077 is next. So Cyberpunk 2077, a game that has been recently revamped a few months ago from a graphics perspective. So when comparing this benchmark versus some of my previous benchmarks, you gotta keep that in mind. Since they released the new, was it Liberty expansion? I think it was what it's called. And that really revamped some of the graphics. So performance-wise, it changed some of the benchmark, performances. I think it got harder to score as many FPS. Like it underperforms relatively at the same settings now. Okay, so 2560 by 1600. We're saying it's a ray tracing ultra, DLSS to quality, ray reconstruction on, frame generation enabled. Oh, and you can do FSR 3 now too. Ooh, that's cool with frame gen. So you can do both. All right, that's excellent. So we don't have path tracing enabled, but all the ray tracing settings are turned on. Everything is set to high or maximum. Let's do it. Counter-Strike 2 has the biggest cheater problem. Really? So sad. What? How are we only doing 74 FPS? This That cannot be right. Right? That, I don't, that, we must not have frame gen enabled or something's going on here, because that is not the correct, there's no way that's correct unless Cyberpunk went through another change. We should be doing over 100 here. For sure, I think. So let's see what the settings say. Because sometimes Cyberpunk doesn't apply them all. It also said I might need to restart the game. So we might need to go for a game restart to get everything set properly. Didn't used to have to do that. But that doesn't look correct. So 77... DLSS Ultra frame generation says it's enabled. Weird. Definitely weird. Let's go for a restart. Let's go for a restart and run it one more time just because I want to make sure it's right. Because that is significantly lower than what I was expecting. The GPU is an RTX 4090. That is correct, Sentai Geek. Laptop 4090. Steven says it consistently pushes 170 to 180 watts while maintaining around 60 to 65 degrees Celsius on the GPU. That's pretty amazing, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that is very good, Steven. It is exceptionally low temperatures for a GPU core temp that's pushing such a high wattage. I would say a more typical temperature would be 75 to 80 for a lot of higher end air-cooled laptops. You know, if we unplugged the water cooler, the temperature probably would go up to that 75 to 82 range. So, yeah. And then it would also have a bit lower clock speed as well. All right. DLSS quality, ray construction, frame generations enabled. Everything looks correct. Let's try running the benchmark again. See if we get more than 77. This is E24, Gaston. This is the E24. The 2024 version from XMG. The E23 has the old style. Okay, that is the correct FPS right there. Yeah, that's how much I know these game benchmarks. Like I saw 77 and I went, that's not right. It should be more than 100. Like for sure. So yeah, 114 average so far, 70 for a 1% low. Some of the settings must not have applied for, I don't know, I'm guessing frame generation or DLSS or something like that that optimizes the FPS experience. Must not be turned on unless you restart the game now. So doing a quick glance, 66 degrees on the GPU at 170 plus watts is excellent. 2400 on the boost clock is insane, actually. That's really high. 77 on the CPU with 65 watts is excellent. Overall performance is very good. 119 average so far, 75 for a 1% low. It does not really get much better than that, quite frankly. 119.69 with overall just superb performance. So that's Cyberpunk 2077. Let's hop into God of War next. Anyone play God of War Ragnarok yet? Like it just came out, what, like this week or something? I played through this game. I loved the storyline. There's some side quests I didn't do yet, and I want to kind of go back and go do them. I've just been too wrapped up in playing Illuvium lately. That's pretty much all I've been playing. So we're going to do Ultra Graphics, RTX 4090, no VSync, DLSS on quality, full render scale. Sentai says, should try Black Myth Wukong ultra settings with ray tracing. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should add that game as a testing game. Because that one was very popular. So I would like that. All right, here we go. So looking at our temps, CPU temps are kind of spicy. In the 80 to 90 range. But our wattage is insane at 90. Over 90 watts sometimes being pulled. I don't think this really needs to pull that high of watts for the CPU, quite frankly. Okay, so that's the benchmark area. 123 on average, 76 for 1% low. Those are excellent. I mean, it's going to be an excellent, just superb gaming experience. If you want to go to higher FPS modes, let's see what original is like. Original, giving us a boost into the 170 range for FPS. It's probably better just to stick to Ultra, I think, since it's already over 120 FPS on average. That'll be good enough. And it'll look just slightly better on Ultra. All right, God of War, amazing. Helldivers is next. Helldivers 2. Fun shoot 'em up alien shooter. What's the price of this? So Gaston, I went over this at the beginning of the live stream, but I can quickly review the price with you. So the price with the config that we're testing right here is around 3,500 euros. Depending on where you buy it, because if you buy this in Europe, you need to go probably through XMG. If you buy this in America, then you would go for electronics, Hydrox 16. So you would go for this one if you're in America, and if you want the liquid propulsion package and the 4090, then it's $2,800 currently for American pricing. That's a lot better price than from XMG. Oh, well, that's with no SSD. So, yeah, you want to have an SSD and RAM. Okay, then now you're talking another $200 at least. So $3,000 in American. Oh, and you can go to a 99 watt hour battery instead of 80 watt hour if you want. Save money if you want as well. Huh. Okay, interesting. So that's the American pricing. All right, so here we are, Helldivers. Oh, wow. Look at all our rewards. It's amazing. Okay. We'll try this one. Probably won't be able to do this by myself, but that doesn't really matter because we're just trying to show the performance. This and this and autocannon. All right. Oh, and we should check our Helldivers settings. Well, we're gonna have to check our settings in the middle of being shot at, I guess. It's because we want ultra settings with ultra render preset, so. Gaston says, quite expensive compared to other brands like MSI. Oh my goodness, why was I in the middle of a base? What the heck? Okay. All right, let's see our graphics. I just want to set it to ultra with okay, and I want ultra render quality as well. Okay. So we're doing damage. We got 10 kills so far. We're averaging 120 FPS. That is really good. For ultra settings like this. Let's just see if we can get into the base here. My supply beacon is jammed right now. So oh no. Oh my gosh. Reloading. Where are my teammates at? I didn't get anyone to join my game with me. That's okay. Our FPS is like phenomenal right now. We're probably gonna die here. It's okay. We're just testing the game. It's playing really well. Like this is peak Helldiver performance for gaming laptops right here. 120 FPS, 84 for 1% low. It is literally so good. So overall, very impressed. Temps are also very good on the GPU. 66, 77 for the CPU. And especially the 1% low performance is really, really good. Let's try to destroy one more base, then move on to the next game. Okay, so... Wait, is this a base? I guess I shouldn't have put it there. Oh well. Should be a base over here though.
Outpost spotted.
Ooh. Okay, if we die, we're just gonna move on to the next game. Oh, we're gonna freaking die. Oh, I'm injured. Oh gosh. Yeah, this game is really hard. This game is really hard. It's really fun though. It's if you like shooters, especially cooperative shooters with your friends, it's so good. Okay, Hogwarts Legacy is next. Let's go. Gaston says quite expensive compared to other brands like MSI. I would say it just depends on which laptop model you're talking about, Gaston. So if you go with the MSI Titan 18HX, which is going to have more comparable performance to this one, then this is actually quite a bit cheaper than the Titan 18HX. But if you go for like, you know, last year MSIs or 13th gen Intel MSI or maybe a Raider, certain Raider things that are on sale, maybe you can find some MSI with some pretty similar levels of performance and a little bit cheaper. But for the level of performance you're getting with this, I do think it's pretty competitively priced, generally speaking. Titans are for billionaires. I don't know about billionaires, but maybe millionaires. I don't know. They're pretty expensive. I do agree. All right, so we're going to be testing Hogwarts Legacy, the hit game from last year. So we are currently running ultra settings. DLSS is on balanced. Let's set it to quality. All right, and ultra settings with ray tracing on. All right, so those are the settings that we have enabled. Frame generation is enabled as well, as I believe that's how people are going to play this game. All right, so let's see our 1% low performance and run around here and see how long it takes to load in, what kind of stutters we have. 23 for our 1% low, 2010 is not great. 1% low performance has not been great. CPU performance 90 is very high CPU power pull. And the RAM allocation 22 gigs. All right, so this game, this area of the map in particular is one of the most troublesome areas because there's so many NPCs and stuff going on all the time. It makes testing here more difficult. So I always run up and down this pathway where we do our test at least once before actually doing the official test, just to give the laptop a chance to load everything in. Okay. So now here we go. We're going to go ahead and do our test now. So 1% low, much better. Oh, it was much better. It keeps going up and then there's a big stutter and then it keeps going up and the stutter. So 109 FPS is good, but 1% low performance is been surprisingly worse than last gen Neo 17 for some reason. 104.15. 1% low, just kind of struggling for some reason. I know the Titan 18HX did amazing in this, for 1% low performance at least. I don't know what they're doing with the MSI Titan series to give it better 1% low performance, but it definitely performed better for 1% lows than this one in this game. Okay, next up we have Illuvium, the game that I have been playing a lot lately. Like it's been my main game now for about 2 months, and I love the crap out of this game. It is so fun to play. So the collection I've amassed in this game is one of the best in the whole player base. So the idea of this game is you have these alluvials, all right? And these alluvials there's different versions of each one. So this is the regular. And this is the hollow version. All right, see if I can find. I don't think, does this count have a dark hollow version? I don't think it does. Here's a dark hollow version of one of these alluvials. So this one is like Archie. He's a healer type. This one's Atlas. He's a bulwark type, so he's like a tank. And this one's an assassin type. And they just have such cool animations around them and characteristics. It's a really fun strategy game. I've been playing this game a lot. So the idea of this game is it's a lot like Pokemon in the sense that you collect creatures and then you can battle your friends and other people on the leaderboards with your collection. You can also create these weapons and armors, and you need shards to be able to actually capture the creatures. So like if I wanted to cure some of these shards, you cure the shards and then you can actually use the cured shard to capture the creature. You can use the weapons and armor as well in your battles against the creatures. And then when you're actually leveling them up, so they each have their own level, you can also fuse them. So like each of these creatures has their own stats. And so I can take 3 of these creatures and merge them together to basically combine them into a higher tier or higher generation that's more powerful, does more damage. And so there's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So like an example, this is the Rota. And so this one, they like shoot, it's like a little porcupine, like shoots quills at the enemy basically, or throws quills. And then this is the Revo, the evolved version of that one. And then this one is the Gyro. And this one's like the grown-up stage 3 version and does a lot more damage and has more attributes and stuff. So, yeah. So what you want to do is when you go into the overworld, you'll want to go capture new creatures. And to do that, you go to the obelisk over here. You need to make sure you have shards. You need to make sure you have your team of alluvials that you want to fight with down here at the bottom. So if I wanted to grab maybe another higher tier creature to augment my damage and healing and stuff, let's grab the Dorius. Sounds good. And yeah, let's do that. All right, let's go to Crimson Waste. All right, we'll do a run. So each time you do a run, you have to pay a small fee. And this fee basically ensures that the assets that you collect in the overworld will have some value, because you can't just collect them for free. You have to pay a little bit. It's like opening a pack of cards, like from Magic the Gathering, as the way I think of it. And then you don't know what you're going to get each time you go into the overworld. So you explore the overworld and you discover which creatures have spawned. So I press the map. Now I can see the hot zones where there's more stuff in the south region. So I probably would want to go out here and then maybe swing around to the south over here looking for creatures. But I ultimately probably want to check every spawn location on the map, to make sure I don't miss anything. Let's check our graphics settings. So we're currently in full resolution let's check off our frame cap. DLSS on balance mode, epic graphics settings. This is made in Unreal Engine 5. I still think they need more optimization, can still optimize this game a lot better, but it's a lot better than it was. You gotta watch out for the acid. You only have so much health. If you die, you go back to the obelisk or the nearest spawn point you've put down. So there's these creatures right here, which you can gather them. There's also mining nodes that you can shoot with your laser rifle, and that'll give you resources. So here's an alluvial right here. It's only a stage 1, tier 3 ace, so it's not really worth trying to collect. Here's a... that was a mining node that's most likely to have a shard, so I did get a rare shard from that, which is needed to capture more alluvials. So Rye is a tier 1, which is not worth getting. So I'm going to keep moving through the world looking for creatures, and I can use my see-through vision to look at what's around me. So here's a bear. I probably would normally try to capture this guy, but I'm going to keep looking for something even better for the sake of recording the video. But you can see he's a tier 4, so I'll just put it down a waypoint here for me to come back here to look for him. Oh yeah, we want to go to the south. So here's a tier 4 snake creature. I'm looking for either a tier 5 or maybe a stage 2 or 3 right now. Flare is pretty good. I do love flares. But I've got a really good one already. So here's a stage 2 fox called a Quinx. We'll go ahead and try to get him. So I overheated my gun. I wasn't able to shoot for a moment there. So currently the creatures just run away from you, but they will be fighting back soon. They're gonna upgrade the game to add that. Clark says, pay what fee? So basically there's fuel that's required to do things in the world, like capturing creatures, traveling throughout the world, upgrading your weapons and armor and stuff. And then anything that you capture is tradable. So that's like the perk that you get by paying a little bit each time you do a thing. It has a value to it. And I understand some people aren't going to like that. Some people will be just fine with it. I'm just fine with it because I want all my assets to have some kind of value. All right, so this is a battle that I'm about to go into. And the grayed out alluvials that don't have color are called ethereal alluvials. You cannot capture those. So the 3 alluvials I can capture are going to be the Riptorus here, which is this scorpion-like stage 2, which is a good one, but it doesn't have good stats, so I don't want to try to capture that. I've got this bull, which is a tank. It has some decent stats, but I really want health and damage resistance, and it doesn't have good damage resistance, so I probably don't want to get that one. And then we have this Quinx. The Quinx is a good one, but let's see if it's got good stats. So it's got max attack speed, which is great. And it's got some health and resistance and some omega power and some move speed. So I'm going to go ahead and try to capture that Quinx. So to do that, I've got capture energy at the top here, 660 capture energy. So I can put creatures down on the board. It's like a strategy game at this point. And my goal is to win the fight with as few creatures as possible. Or as few mastery points played as possible, because each creature costs a certain amount of mastery points. Like Rhoda only costs 30, but Rake costs 65. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these down. I've got 221. I can probably put down 1 or 2 more. Now each of my creatures has their own stats. See my Umbra? It's got perfect attack speed, attack damage, and almost perfect omega power. He's a really high stat Umbra, a perfect stat gyro. My Quinx is almost perfect, but I'm basically looking to improve my stat collection for all the creatures that I have is my goal in playing this game, so that then I can play other players with even better stats, essentially. Okay, so the enemies will heal for their health for 4% max health every second. They also have additional dodge chance, which make them super tanky. And energy resistance. So I'm probably going to also want to upgrade the damage output on my Umbra and my Gyro if I'm going to win this fight. So let's go ahead and play the round and see if we can win the fight. I don't think we'll have a problem winning the fight since I upgraded my stuff. And I've got really high stats on most of my stuff. Look at the Umbra. It's just going to town, killing everything. Okay, beautiful. So I won the fight. Now it gives me an opportunity to try to capture one of those 3 capturable creatures. And we already know the Quinx has some decent stats. So we're going to go for the Quinx. We'll do a rare shard. Only 43% chance to capture. But we'll get several attempts based on the energy bar that we have left. I believe it's 55 energy. Yeah, so I should have 3 attempts. So I can use a lower capture chance shard initially, and then I'd want to switch to a more expensive one. But hey, I caught him with a 44% chance. So this Quinks, if I wanted to sell him, I could check the market pricing, but he's probably worth around 50 cents to $1 or something like that. I don't know, somewhere in that range. Just because he's got max attack speed makes him cast a little faster. But his stats are not amazing or anything either. So, but it only cost me like 20 cents to capture him or something. So it was a profitable capture most likely. I don't want to capture these other two because they don't have good enough stats to sell. So then I would move on to another phase of the game, like looking for my next creature that I might want to capture in the overworld. So continuing checking and gathering resources. That's basically what Illuvium is about. And then battling people one-on-one and the 8-man PvP mode as well. So let's just look at performance and move around for a little bit. So we're averaging 142 FPS. 1% lows. We're still getting some stutters, but it's pretty smooth overall. Very smooth overall gaming experience with the current setup that we have, at least with this 4090. So yeah, that's basically Illuvium in a nutshell. Ooh, I love dashes. Dashes are one of my favorites. But we're gonna move on to the next game, just because we got a good performance test. 130 FPS, 57 for a 1% low. Though we were getting worse 1% low stutters earlier. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Oh, and I just full disclaimer. As always, I like being straight up with people. I love Illuvium. I invest in the things that I love. And so I just want you to know, I've invested in Illuvium. I think it has a potentially amazing future. Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, you know, I own stocks too. So I own some other game developers as well. But Illuvium is a project that I've been following for almost 3 years now, very closely. So I'm really excited about where it's going and what it's going to turn into, especially when they add the combat modes and the extra game modes that they're going to add to it. It's going to be great. All right, so full screen, we need to go to full resolution, turn on frame gen. Ray tracing ultra with DLSS on quality. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't save, so I have to check it like 3 times.
This bard's tale begins near White Orchard. Dear friend,
Is the pump even running with these temps? Yeah, the pump has been running. You can hear it if I bring it over. But if you just have speakers running, it's going to drown out the sound of the pump pretty consistently, I think. Like right now I have the speakers only at like 10% volume and it's kind of drowning it out anyway. Let's see here. I'm going to actually change my save. To this one. Games look great these days due to the Unreal Engine 5. Yeah, I mean, it's a good engine for, I think, building games. All right. So here we are, Witcher 3. Let's do our test. All right, so 110 FPS so far at the start. 84 for 1% low is excellent. Again, ultra settings. Very good. 65 degrees on this GPU, 89 on the CPU. You know, I don't think it really needs to push this high a wattage to the CPU to get good frame rates in this game, but it probably helps the 1% low a little bit, having such a high wattage pull on the CPU. So there it is, 88 FPS for a 1% low, 124 for our average. Very good Witcher 3 performance. Let's get into the summary of everything we've found out about this XMG Neo 16. So, in case you missed it, we've done all of these things, and we're about to go over all of them to showcase, I guess, what we've discovered today. So, I've just turned off the pump, which means I can now disconnect it. And disconnect the power. There we go. I'm going to put it on my shoulder for this. All right. Okay. What's up, and welcome to my final summary review for the XMG Neo 16. This guy is amazing in some ways, a big improvement in a lot of ways from the last year's generation, the E23. This is the E24 model, the 2024 model. This has especially the biggest thing is the water cooling has been upgraded with a heat plate that goes around the GPU and CPU, and I think it does a better job cooling the system. That said, we ran into some performance issues in my preliminary testing. I will put a pinned comment down below when I figure out what's going on. The big issue was the CPU did not pull enough wattage to hit the maximum temperature. 205 watts is what it should have went up to until it hit thermal throttling at 95 degrees. Instead, what we saw was basically it was only pulling about 158 watts peak, and then it was going down from there, and the CPU clock speed on the P cores was only a little over 4 gigahertz, like 4.05 on all the P cores, and 3.2, 3.3 on the E cores. And I've seen higher clock speeds on a lot of other laptops, including when we tested this at CES 2024. So I don't know what's going on there, but that was probably my personal biggest disappointment in today's testing, and makes me want to try to retest this at some point, just to see how hard we can push this CPU to the maximum limit. I'm sure Tom probably knows already what's going on. Well, if it's something that's changed in the software and now the max power limit is 157, or if we just had some setting wrong in the BIOS or needs to be updated to the latest version or something. But I'll follow up with Tom and get a pinned comment about what happened with that. So let's talk through each of the items. XMG Neo 16 configurations. You can configure this with an RTX 4060, 4070, 4080, or 4090. I personally would only recommend considering this if you want an RTX 4080 or 4090, because that has a high enough power limit that it makes it worthwhile going for a water-cooled laptop, because 175 watts is a lot of power, and having the water cooler definitely helps keep the GPU cooler. Now, you can also, I suppose, go for the 4060 or 4070 if you really want high-end CPU performance, though we didn't really see that today in today's testing, like I mentioned. So, but theoretically, it should be one of the fastest performing CPU laptops on the market when it's actually going at full speed, which, like I said, didn't really go to full speed today. Unboxing the laptop's pretty simple, straightforward. There was a multi-box experience when this came in the mail. Big outer box, 2 inner boxes, one for the water cooler, one for the laptop itself. And unboxing the laptop, very straightforward. 330 watt GAN power adapter is smaller and a little bit lighter, I think, than last year's power adapter, so that was a welcome improvement. Laptop is firm, great build quality, all metal chassis, top lid, Keyboard deck, under deck, all metal, feels like a weapon, feels super solid. The only plastic is the internal hinge here. The inside of the display casing basically is plastic. Other than that, the build quality is superb. It's rigid. The hinge is also excellent with very little wobble to it. Like, it's one of the firmest hinges I've tested in recent testing, or really any testing at all. It's one of the best hinges. The weight was, what was it? I think it was 5.5 pounds and then 7.7 pounds with the power adapter, or 7.8 pounds with the power adapter. Overall, very portable system when you're just doing air cooling. But when it's doing air cooling, it's just going to be competitive with the other air-cooled laptops on the market, which is going to be very good performance, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be something extra special. And if you want something extra special, all that extra performance that XMG, kind of promises, you really got to have the water cooler. So when you're factoring in the price of this laptop, you got to be willing to spring an extra 100 to 200, depending on whether it's on sale and which model you get for the water cooler system. Now, setting up the water cooler was very easy for me. You just basically pull it out, plug everything in, and put some water in the reserve up to where the reserve line is. And then you're pretty much good to go for a long period of time. The new sealer valves, when you plug it in and unplug it, is excellent. Like this little guy is a great little way to plug the laptop in, and it's, kind of clicks in and stays in. And at most I've had a few drops hit my desk when I unplug it and unplug it. So it does retain the water inside the loop really well. Removing the bottom is pretty straightforward. Small Phillips head screw, about 10 screws. And once you get the thing coming off, you have to kind of figure out a good entry point. But once you get the entry point started, it comes apart really easily. You can upgrade 2 M.2 slots. You've got 2 accessible RAM slots, as well as your Wi-Fi. 99 watt-hour battery, and you can also go for an 80 watt-hour battery if you want to save money, at least if you go through electronics. I'm not sure about XMG's website. The BIOS has lots of customizability, though I did not see XMP memory profiles in there. I don't know if XMG is going to be including that going forward or not, but we did have Kingston Fury Impact RAM in here, which is some of the faster RAM that I've tested, at least for that pairs up with the i9 14900HX. There was no bloatware on this machine, pretty much standard stock Windows 11 with a couple of basic applications, no antivirus pre-installed or anything, which is awesome. I love that. Also, the stickers, no stickers on this guy, very clean look. The stickers are included in the box though if you want to put them on the machine. So very cool, I love that. Windows Hello works well on this machine, logs me in no problem, consistently and fast. The webcam quality was also pretty good. I give it an 8 out of 10 with pretty decent mic quality unless you're typing. The typing does significantly impact the audio quality. Speaker test was like an 8.2 with some good volume, forward-facing speakers, but since it doesn't have tweeters and a dedicated subwoofer, when you end up playing, bassy, mids, and highs all at once, it blends the sounds together a bit and like reduces the amount of bass you feel and all that. So like if it's just bass playing, it's pretty good. If it's just mids playing, it's pretty good. Though the highs were, I think, a little bit muddled no matter what. Fan noise. We had 55 decibels when you're running maximum fans and maximum pump at the same time, which is pretty loud. Keep that in mind. Now, the thing is, when you go to quiet fans, or like basically fans very quiet, and quiet pump, you're still going to get pretty much maximum performance, a little higher temps though, but pretty much maximum performance right around 45 decibels, which I think may be the #1 reason to buy this laptop. Like if you hate fan noise in your environment and you don't like having a gushing fan, then this is a machine that allows you to listen to a water pump at a quieter fan noise level, and it's going to be a lot better for your overall white noise, I guess, environment for your room. So a really great balance of performance to audio white noise creation, just generally speaking. Plus, if you wanted to, you could probably set the water cooler radiator at least about 1.5 to 2 feet further away to reduce the fan noise, or maybe set it down on a little sub desk or behind your desk a little bit. Just make sure there's some airflow around it. And that'll even reduce the room noise even further, and you pretty much won't hear it at all almost. So yeah. Keyboard and mouse. This has a great typing feel. The layout on the keyboard is excellent. I went through all the backlight modes for this laptop. There are a ton of different modes, but I would say that the animation controller is just not as advanced as a lot of other laptops out there like Razer and Lenovo. The animations do not play as smoothly. The rainbow mode that we're currently in here looks good, but it doesn't move around. So if you want it to move or animate, I think it's just going to look a little more stuttery than what I've seen from other laptops out there. The trackpad, glass trackpad, good size, and I really like it. Like overall, this machine is pretty compact for a 16-inch laptop. The bezel is fairly small. It's an efficiently designed system, and it's got some pretty good ports on it as well. On the left side, you have a headset port, a USB-C and a USB-A, a fan exhaust, and then on the rear, you have dual flanking fan exhausts, power adapter port, a LAN port that is downward facing, a little harder to unplug, HDMI 2.1, USB-C with power delivery, 100 watts, and G-Sync support, as well as the water cooler input and outputs. And then on the right side, you have another fan exhaust, 2 more USB-As, and about a 90 megabytes per second full-size SD card slot. So the ports on this are about as good as it gets for any laptop of almost any size. So giant thumbs up. There's only a couple laptops I think that have slightly better ports, and those are 18-inch machines. So this is about as good as it gets for a 16-inch chassis. Laptop control software is very simple. It's the XMG Control Center, and it's very easy to get in there and change all your settings. There's like 3 main areas for lighting, performance, and general settings that you might need to access. It works great. Giant thumbs up overall, with the exception of it did not perform how it was supposed to perform during today's testing. But in terms of UI and usability, it's excellent. It's very simple and intuitive to use. 8 to 64 RAM speed, we had very fast. I think it was 87,000 and 78,000 for our read write and copy speeds, with a very fast latency of around, I think, in the 80 nanosecond mark. It was overall very good, especially for RAM that's not overclocked at all. And that's the Kingston Fury Impact. It's going to be a little bit faster, like 10-15% faster than a lot of other RAM on the market, though that really won't affect gameplay performance very much. Cinebench R23, we got a little over 30,000, about 30.5 thousand, like 30,500. I think our best run was maybe 30,700, but we were not seeing the power draw that I was expecting. You know, I was expecting up to 205 watts of continuous power pull, and we only saw about 140 watts continuous power pull, maybe a little bit more or less, maybe 145, depending on what we were doing. And overall performance was good. It was in line with other i9 14900HXs, but it really was nothing special like I was hoping for the water cooler, right? I was expecting some really high numbers, maybe like 32, 33,000 without any undervolting, or maybe, you know, like 32.5 maybe without any undervolting, and then maybe pushing 35,000 with undervolting, 36, maybe 37,000 depending on Silicon Lottery. That was the numbers I was hoping for. Those are the numbers that I was expecting, because we did over 32,000 when we were at CES 2024. So I don't know if Intel updated the power limits on the processor. XMG did after the big fiasco with desktop Intel 13th and 14th gen. I mean, you're talking slim margins that really aren't going to make too much of a difference. But to me, those slim margins are one of the reasons why you'd get this machine over the other machines that are air cooled, because you want that extra 5, 10, 15% performance because of the water cooler. And like now, you're just getting the same performance that you get in the Scar 18, the Titan 18HX. Like, it's nothing special to me in terms of overall performance for CPU or GPU performance. We're right in line. We're right in line with what you'd expect other air-cooled laptops to be, but we have a water cooler to deal with. And that's kind of a downside. And so that's why I almost want to do some additional testing to maybe push this thing as fast as possible if I can get to the bottom of why it wasn't pulling the full CPU wattage. Okay, so time spy, we went over 23,000 for our GPU test score, which is excellent. It was 23.17. The most I think I got was 23.5 in my preliminary testing, which is obviously excellent and above average because when you hook up the water cooler, the GPU is able to boost a little bit higher on that GPU boost clock, about 10% higher. And that really amps the FPS by about 5-10% in a pure GPU performance test. The other thing about this machine is that since it has that water cooler, it's able to just consistently push a lot of wattage through the CPU. And that is a very good thing in CPU bound games where occasionally there's lots of NPCs or lots of things loading in and out, and you're going to get less 1% low stutters and just better overall consistent performance by having that higher CPU wattage pull. So overall, I really like the performance, especially in most of the games we tested, but some of the games still had some pretty bad 1% low performance, quite frankly, and it was a little disappointing. So yeah. Okay. So Apex Legends, superb performance. Well over 250 FPS on ultra settings, like almost 300 FPS in low settings. Baldur's Gate 3, phenomenal. Over 200 FPS with like 60 FPS for our 1% lows. Counterstrike 2 averaging more than 240 FPS. Not sure what a 1% low is, but it was excellent. It felt amazing to play. Cyberpunk 2077, I think we did about 120 FPS with very good 1% lows in like the 70s. So very good performance. God of War, also very good performance, around 120 FPS. Helldivers 2, also 120 FPS with good 1% lows. Hogwarts Legacy, though, that was one of the games where the 1% lows kind of struggled. It was like 15 or something like that. And it was only 105 FPS for our average, which is also not that great. So not sure what's going on with the 1% lows in Hogwarts Legacy. I felt like we've seen some big improvements overall for Hogwarts Legacy, but this felt like a step backward compared to the Neo 17 that I tested last year, at least in that game. Illuvium had good overall performance once we got things loaded in, but as things loaded in, there was that loading in stutters. They definitely need to still optimize the game a little bit better. But the overall experience was still very enjoyable because the stutters were not too dominating. It only happened occasionally. And the performance was on max settings and it still felt really good. Graphics were very good. Witcher 3, very good performance, about 120 FPS, I think, again. So we're hitting 120 FPS on ultra settings on almost all the AAA games. And that's really good. Like that's with ray tracing on. Turn off ray tracing and you're talking way higher FPS too. So overall summary and thoughts on the XMG Neo 16. It's slimmer than last year. It's much better designed, much better build quality, better webcam, slightly better speakers. The keyboard has been improved. Overall, I really like this system. And if you're after a system that has phenomenal performance with not being too loud, that is kind of the main reason I think to go for this over some of the other machines. Because the other machines like the Scar 18, it can have, like the Scar 18 right here behind me, it can have really good performance, but it has to be loud. And if you want to have a medium level of performance, it can do that too, and it can be quieter, but it's still not going to be as quiet as the Neo 16 with the water cooler running on quiet mode. Like it's very quiet and it's still pushing the full wattage. That's the thing. When the Scar 18 gets quieter, it's not pushing the full wattage anymore. And that's kind of the main difference, I think, here. This can be quiet and still push the full performance. So I think that's currently the number one reason to go for this. In regards to whether this is the fastest laptop in the world, I don't think so. Really, like the way we tested it today did not show any particularly special performance over the competition. But I feel like something was going on. Like we were not hitting the full power limits on the CPU. Like in particular, the CPU performance, I feel like should have been better. I've seen quite a bit better performance on some of the other laptops. Even yeah. And that to me is probably the biggest area where I was a little disappointed and hoping for more performance. Time Spy also, you know, we had an overclock on our system. We got over 23,000 in time spy, but last year with the Neo 17, we got over 24,000. And I think that could just be Silicon Lottery. It's a variance of 800 points. So, I mean, I'm happy to chalk that up to Silicon Lottery and say you could get better performance or maybe slightly worse performance than this if you go for this machine. It's just something to keep in mind that like last year's performance of the Neo 17, it kind of blew me away because it was like 5 to 10% faster than almost all the machines. And the Neo 17 that I tested last year was faster than this one in almost all the tests. So that's where I'm like, I like the design better, but for some reason the performance on this one is actually a little bit worse, even though I think the thermal cooling solution is actually better. So I don't know, I feel like some software tweaking and some additional updates or something to the software can help boost the performance of this one to where it was supposed to be, like shown to me at CES. Like that was the performance I was expecting, like over 200 watts to the CPU is what I was expecting, and we saw more like 145. So that is probably just a BIOS update, and that may be what you should expect with this machine, because maybe Intel forced XMG to do that to prevent any damage to laptops and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm going to ask Tom, and like I said, I'll update the pinned comment with whatever I find out. So that's a summary of everything we found out about the laptop. I think the laptop's an excellent machine overall, and certainly a worthy contender for someone that wants a overall portable high performance machine when it's on air, and an exceptionally high performance machine when it's plugged into the water cooler. One area I want to touch on too that I skipped over is the display. We tested at 523 nits brightness, which is excellent, but we only tested at about 100% or 101% sRGB coverage with only about 79% of the P3 color gamut. So if you're a content creator and you want a very color saturated display, or you're a gamer that wants a very color saturated display, this is just not going to be as colorful as the other higher end displays. So I really hope XMG in 2025 offer something with 100% P3 color gamut as an option for their displays, at least. Because like I definitely feel like there's a lot of better displays out there. Almost every other high performance laptop above $3,000 offers a 100% P3 color gamut display option, except this one. I'm pretty sure that's almost for sure across the whole lineup. Almost. There's probably a couple other ones, but the vast majority of high-end premium laptops have 100% P3 color gamut if it's over $3,000, and this one just doesn't. So that's kind of like one of the other major cons to the laptop currently. So that's my review of the XMG Neo 16 2024. Really amazing, lots of improvements in a lot of ways, but currently, if it was my money, I don't feel like the water cooler is worth it unless you are very sensitive to the fan noise and you want a quieter overall system while still maintaining high levels of performance. That's the main reason I think to potentially buy it. Okay, so that's my review. Thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna check chat for a couple questions and then we'll move on. Okay. Are you able to get the vendors to disclose how the HX Intel CPUs fail rate? So XMG, I can actually show you this and I can put it into chat as well. They've made an article about this. Let me put it in chat here. So this is their summary on the Intel issue, and they've talked to Intel directly, and they've done a bunch of source testing, and this was actually just updated yesterday. But basically they're saying that Intel has confirmed that laptop CPUs are not affected by the voltage instability issues, the VMIN shift instability issue. And I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I've had my Blade 18 now for a year and 8 months or a year and 7 months. And I've had almost zero crashes on it during that time. And I've run a lot of stuff on it for a long time. And I feel like I would have started to run into issues if it was a problem That said, XMG has also been, you can see in here that our own experience corroborate this, as there have been no reported cases involving mobile processors from our customers. And they said they've had, a well-received thread on Reddit asking people to report their issues, and also a channel on Discord to report any issues. And they've not seen a single case yet of Intel 13th and 14th gen that have had failure from the HX CPU. Like, so this is the best evidence so far from any vendor that it doesn't affect laptops. To the best of my knowledge, I think it's accurate, but I'll have this linked in the description or just in the video chat right there if you want to check it out on your own time. Okay. So that's it. Congrats, Clark, on your Zephyrus G16. Thanks so much for everyone that tuned in. I'll see you in the next live stream, which should involve the new Ryzen AI chip in the Zephyrus G16. So we'll see you in the next one.